On what path can Ra's al Ghul offer?
The path of a man who shares his hatred of evil and wishes to serve true justice. The path of the League of Shadows.
The vigilantes.
No. The vigilante is just a man lost in the scramble for his own gratification. He can be destroyed or locked up. But if you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, and if they can't stop you, then you become something else entirely.
Which is?
Legend, Mr. Wayne.
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello and welcome to episode 81 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm your host Becca and as always joined by Chris and Dave. How are you doing?
Feeling backtastic.
I feel like it's beginning again.
There's a song in there somewhere.
I feel reborn.
So let's all get brooding
Okay.
and dark and don our new look bat cowls.
Yeah, let's go all gruff and serious. Because we know we had enough of this silliness now. We have to, like,
Start talking like this.
No one talks like that, Becca, anywhere, honestly.
Next time, next time.
Yeah, can you imagine if we all started, like, doing the next 3 episodes just all in our Batman voice? Just like...
Yeah, but Becca's Batman voice is
Stop.
nothing like it.
I can't do impressions.
We know.
Well, you can.
We've got 200 plus hours of you not being able to do impressions.
Well, no, to be fair, she can. She can do Homer Simpson doing an impression of Mr. Burns. So.
Yeah. Name, Batman. First name, I don't know.
I'm Batman, don't you know?
I don't know.
Anyway, who's in this, Becca?
And what is it?
Yeah, what are we watching?
For a wildly serious film, this is an oddly comic tone we're taking in the introduction.
Oh, we're going to go dead serious in a minute.
It's a big heavy film with lots of heavy themes, but it's also smart and funny. But I think, as much as I hate the word, we do have a lot to unpack. So, as if you hadn't guessed, we are onto the business end of the Batman series with Batman Begins, starring Christian Bale, Ken Watanabe, Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes, Gary Oldman, Cillian Murphy. Still can't pronounce his name.
You just did.
Is it Cillian? Cillian? We never know. I'm going to call him Cillian. If you're listening, I hope you are. Might not
That's
be.
correct.
Anyway, there we are.
I always thought it was Cillian Murphy, but is it definitely Cillian?
Yes.
No.
This is what I've read in Tinterwebs.
See, the trick is, Chris, even if you're not sure, just say it with absolute confidence. Yes, it is.
Makes people think, oh shit, I've been saying it wrong all this time.
Now you know he knows what he's on about.
You might find us up and say, "Excuse me." No.
What? How do you pronounce his name? I don't know.
I do.
So now we got Cillian Murphy sitting with the Queen, Samuel Jackson.
Queen Latifah, Michael Aspel, the Force Ghost of Ronnie Corbett, and Riddick Bowe in full boxing regalia with a plate full of bourbons and a wiped off, not fingered.
I was quite pleased I got through the pronunciation of Ken Watanabe. I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah, you got that wrong though.
Oh.
You didn't.
Ken
I'm just fucking with you.
I call him Watanabe Ken because that's probably the right way to do it.
No, it's Ken O. Watanabe, because it's pointed out the villains in this are Irish.
Well, he's barely a villain, to be fair. He's barely got a role there.
Watanabe-san, I should call him. Also starring Morgan Freeman, plus Jack Gleeson, Shane Rimmer, and Colin McFarlane, if you can spot them. The story by David S. Goyer, script by David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan, score by James Newton Howard and Hans Zimmer. directed by Christopher Nolan and released in 2005, and it still stands up to this day.
Oh, that's Becca's review then.
Yep,
Okay.
that's my one-line review. And that's just Christian Bale. Hey!
Way? So what kind of standing up are you referring to there?
Well, I think after all the physical activity that he did with
Is that why he's got a crouch on the corners of buildings?
That's what. Yeah, he has to have a rest. Because the suit's heavy. It weighs a lot. So
It's like getting an erection in tight jeans. You best just crouch.
well, I'll take your word for that.
I don't wear tight jeans anymore.
Anymore.
Not anymore.
So you're not telling us. Anyway,
Yeah.
what do you reckon to this film?
Go on, Chris.
It's got it's got strong power with Casino Royale. This one, hasn't it? With a kind of leaving from a franchise in a few years from being at its most silly and stupid and just preposterous and campy and just downright just crap. It kind of goes, right, reset button, let's make everything dark, let's make everything gritty, let's start making a film like an adult. And this is the result. I think out of all the Batman films, and including the other Nolan films, this one is solely about Batman. You think about the last, even the Burton Batman films, they didn't really address him as a character. It was always about the villain, because it was like, he had one villain for each film, so that the villain was the main focus. He just happened to be the guy he was fighting against. So it's nice to actually sort of see an origin, which we've seen loads of origins, but we've not really seen a Batman origin, and it's nice to actually proper address him as a character and sort of go through what kind of would bring him to do that, and it does it really quite well. I'm kind of, I've always said this was my favourite Batman film, and now I've kind of watched all the Nolans recently, and I'm going to rewatch Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises again soon. So I can kind of, at the moment, it's kind of like a tie. There are a few issues with it that I have, mainly in the editing, but I can understand reasons for it. My main criticism is how it deals with the action scenes at times. I'm pretty sure Dave will have a minor disagreement on that to some extent. But overall, this is a really good, honest take at the character of Batman. I think the idea of the villains, I don't know whether it's by chance. It's by chance, because you think going from Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy, and next in the villains is Scarecrow or Ra's al Ghul, and they are perfect for the themes of this film. And if you're going to go do a Batman origin and deal with the theme of fear and all this, they are the perfect villains to have there. So I don't know whether it's just what was written in the stars that this film will come about now, or back in 2005. But yeah, no, it is probably the best take on the character that we have seen yet, I think. Guys, what do you think?
I would agree with elements of that. Well, I would agree with almost all of it, actually. I haven't rewatched the other two Nolans yet. I have just stuck to Batman Begins. But as we came into this series, I had one sort of a couple of well-ingrained opinions and one fear, if you like. The two well-ingrained opinions were that I thought The Dark Knight was the better film, but Batman Begins is the best representation we've had of Batman on the big screen. And those two are not mutually exclusive points. My fear was the Marvel effect, that we've got used now to Marvel have completely changed the landscape of superhero films, largely because they make most of them, so they set the tone. But you go back and watch the original X-Men films now, and I watch them and think, what are you embarrassed about? You are comic book films. And there just seemed to be a time where they were either really kiddie and stupid, or they all wore sort of very heavy fabrics and were overly self-serious. And Marvel have shown that there's a middle path. And I watched Spider-Man. I've seen Spider-Man Homecoming twice in the last week, which has come out in the last week or so at the time of recording. And I was really, really fond of it. Is it better than this? No, it's not. I'm not suggesting that for a moment. But I did wonder if revisiting these films, that their hold on the sort of the zeitgeist has just completely changed. And when you come back to these films, will a sort of real world, quote unquote, superhero work? Actually, within a few minutes of watching this film, all that gets forgotten and it draws me in. In terms of how I go into this series thinking of them relative to the other ones, I still think that now, as I say, Marvel and even the DC universe, which hasn't been wildly successful to this point, has changed the game. That I watch Batman Begins now and think, why can't we just have him in the grey and black and stuff like that? But it wasn't to be. I do think that this is not the sort of Batman that could work in a shared universe, and it's no worse for that by any means. In terms of the action, I get Chris's point, really. I think it depends how important the action is to you. As action for action's sake, it's very poor. As an edited piece of action to tell the story, I think it's very good. And we'll get to that as we come to the scenes in question. I would never argue with anyone that says this is the best of the trilogy. I just don't happen to agree. I think The Dark Knight is the better film, but this is the better study of Batman, and as such, it was the Batman film I always wanted, and it stands up 12 years later.
It depends on what you want from this, because what I kind of get from watching the Nolan ones is there's, it's what you sort of think of like someone's interpretation of characters, and I know comic book fans can, with all due respect in the world, they can get a little bit precious about it, so when it's like, whether it's Batman, Superman, or any character that you want, they get like, well, that's not how that character should be portrayed. It's not how they see what they grew up with. Now, I'm no expert, so I can't tell them. Well, I can't really tell anyone what a certain character would be. But you have to look at this you have to look at films as interpretations, and it's an art form. And so, if I was to make a Batman film, I'm sure there'll be comic fans who would say like, "No, you got that wrong. No, you got completely wrong." But so you have to remember, this is someone's interpretation of a character, and sometimes that means bending certain things. It means changing ideas, playing with things. I think even Marvel are doing it even now. They're changing the origins of characters. They're mixing things around, and and to be honest, fair enough. It's all part and parcel of the art, really. And when I look at Nolan's verse, it's a lot more real world based. It's a lot more practical. So we think about him not being in the right costume. It's like, well, it's more like armor. It's more logically thought out. Even when we get into Dark Knight, it's more sort of methodical. Of the fact that Christian Bale, like, his character wants to move more, so it made the armor more flexible. It's written in the story as well, so there's a lot more sort of real life centered base. But ironically, this is a lot more comic booky of the three films. One of the things I didn't say was Gotham actually has a real character in this, as opposed to the other films where they're basically just like New York and Chicago stand-ins. They just basically like, well, you just film Chicago and you just film New York. The Narrows
disappears as a concept entirely after this film.
Yeah,
you don't see it anymore, do we?
And the Narrows is I only read this today, and it's funny because I've known this film for so long and watched all the special features. But Blade Runner was an influence, and now I've read that, I can see it.
It's a lot of orange in this film.
Also, you've got Rutger Hauer as well, so
yes. Oh yeah, because you got Rutger Hauer. Shame Harrison Ford couldn't be in it.
I actually forgot he was in Blade Runner for a second. So when she said it's Rutger Hauer in it, I'm like, what's that got to do with the shape of the fucking arrows? What, did they all drink Guinness while they were in there? Yeah, I get it. We'll come on a little bit to the sort of we ought to talk a little bit after Becca about the sort of lead up to this film, because obviously there's 8 years from one of the stupidest films ever put to celluloid before we get to this, and a sort of growing talent at this point in sort of Christopher Nolan. Becca, what did you make of Batman Begins?
Well, it's like we said before, you've got to have a Dawn of the Day or Batman Forever before you can reach to this point, and obviously I think this film was certainly one of the main inspiration points for the Bond team, rebooting that franchise. And that was sort of It's quite difficult for me to say. I mean, I did really enjoy it. I agree about the issues like surrounding the editing and some of the action sequences. I think in terms of the world building, this is, Chris, you're perfectly right. This is pretty much how Batman would operate in today's society. I would argue that Gotham is more of a character. I mean, it is obviously perhaps Chicago, but I'd perhaps in the first two Batman movies, like back in the 80s and 90s, I would say that Gotham does have more of a character, and then is largely forgotten by the Schumacher movies. But here again, yeah, it stands in as a real character, and again, we'll see that next week. But no, I really enjoyed it. I'm loving it on release, and watched it again recently for this, and still really enjoyed it. There's some script elements which don't entirely wash with me, and again, some of the editing can be quite choppy. And yeah, it's just that there's a couple of during the action scenes, for example, during the tumbler chase. But there are some really cool lines. The cast are absolutely top form, I think. When obviously Nolan is a director can be much admired and can really command a great cast. I don't think there's no weak link for me in this film anyway. Even even kind of like background artists, they really bring every scene alive, really. I really love this film. Really enjoy this film. But again, yes, in terms of kind of ranking it in terms of the Nolan verse, as I'll call it, it'll probably be, I don't know, the first one for me so far. I think, yeah, for me it's a kind of favourite, definitely in terms of the trilogy. But no, I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it.
One of the things that surprised me, actually, from reading up on this film was one of my big inspirations was actually Superman the movie in terms of its stellar cast. He wanted like an all-star cast to give this like kind of weight of
weight of importance.
Yeah, kind of almost like I don't know what the word is, like just to give this kind of like, oh my god, this is like sort of where's escaping me now?
It's like an event movie, really, isn't it? I would say.
Basically, yeah. It's
I think you're suggesting the gravitas that comes with having name actors with CVs that are serious films.
Yeah. And just like think, actually think, you got that guy. It's like, I mean, Michael Caine as Alfred is like, you never thought you get Michael Caine to play Alfred.
No, it's one of that stature.
Yeah, and
actually, he's ideal in the role.
But it's like it's full of that. You've got like Morgan Freeman.
I mean, how did they manage to get the star of Jaws: The Revenge and The Swarm in Blue Eyes? This is a man who only embraces quality.
But you know what I mean? He's someone who probably would come at a heavy price, and you've also got Morgan Freeman, you got Gary Oldman, you got Rutger Hauer just showing up for a few scenes. You got you even have like some people just cameos. I think one of the unsung heroes is who does a really good performance is Tom Wilson, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not of an American background, but I thought his accent was fucking dreadful.
Yeah, okay.
That's the problem. I'm no expert on it, but just sometimes they just jar wrong to me, and that just jarred badly. And I could just imagine anyone from the United States watching this and going, "Fucking hell, what's that?" Reminds me of whenever Bob Hoskins tried to do one.
Oh dear, that was terrible. I do think his was kind of like, because you've got like Christian Bale, Michael Caine. Well, he doesn't do any kind of accent. He just does Michael Caine. Ken Barlow Jr.
We must reveal Ken Barlow from Coronation Street is the granddad of Batman.
Fun fact, folks. Then who else?
I'm probably to many others as well.
Yeah, because he's put in about a bit. We delayed recording of this to read up on it.
Especially. I mean, who else you got? Obviously, Colin McFarlane.
He's seen everything.
Joe Beeson, obviously, Joffrey, and all the rest of it. You've got these English, British actors.
Yeah, none of them
doing American accents.
Or Ken Barlow.
But did over 1,000 women, don't you know?
Yeah.
And if you Ken Barlow, why not?
Just during the filming of this.
Not over the course of 1,000 years on Corrie. But no, obviously you've got a lot of British English actors doing American accents. I would say it's probably least convincing, but I mean, Tom Wilkinson, he's pretty much solid casting and whatever you go for.
Carmine Falcone comes from the comic books, or certainly those listening who don't really know the comic books, the disclaimer at the start of this is, haven't read any for a while, so I'll forget what's in what. but I seem to remember Carmine Falcone from The Long Halloween, which is my favourite.
He's also been Gotham as well, doesn't he?
It tends to be sort of like the main gangster family in the Batman universe, isn't it?
Very, very influenced
or Maconis or something like that.
Yeah, they're often in sort of tuxes and stuff like that, so it's very like The Godfather in look.
I think that's the whole style they were going for, really, weren't they?
Well, they haven't so much designed the look around it here. I forget what Carmine Falcone's son is called in it. But yeah, The Long Halloween's really worth a look. But some of those characters you see in this, sure, Flass is in the books as well. Loeb certainly is, although he never looks like this. Loeb is kind of like white and bald and fat in the books. But yeah, you can see that there's an effort to make a proper crime thriller based on.
What you mean? Not the guy from the Fast Show? No.
It's not normally the guy from the Fast Show. No.
He's if you don't know, you have to go back to the Fast Show. But he's one of the alternate newscasters who goes, "Hi, I'm Ed Winchester," and they all do a massive line, and they all got silly names as they go along. So it starts off with the "Hi, I'm Ed Winchester" guy, and it ends up with him going, "Hi, I'm." The guy
who's actually Ed Winchester in most scenes is the newsman in Tomorrow Never Dies, who says,
"Yeah, he is. It's that guy."
We didn't do it.
We didn't do it. Yeah, that's that guy.
Yeah.
And he's also the guy who does like the Jamaican rapping or other kind of languages, and he goes, "Oi, I don't know what you're talking about," in a West Country accent.
Okay. First impression you've ever done that didn't sound like Homer Simpson. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, they definitely he referenced, by he I mean Nolan, referenced Superman the movie has an influence on trying to go for such a higher profile prestige cast. Just to remind ourselves, that film had Marlon Brando, it had Gene Hackman, who else did it have? Glenn Ford. So there were some real sort of classic old names in that. Terrence Stamp, and sort of more if I sat and thought about it. So this film has Rutger Hauer, Gary Oldman, and all the names Becca came out with at the start of the film. They've put together a prestige cast for this.
There's probably lots of people I missed out, but I tried to capture the main people.
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much did. And,
some of the ones you have to take a deep breath and read the list off IMDb.com.
Yeah. I mean, this comes at the end of sort of an 8-year period where they were trying to put together other Batman films. Obviously, the first sort of one out of the gate would have been the next Schumacher film.
Yeah.
Which you see different names for it in different places. I've always sort of known it as Batman Triumphant, but I do believe that's not actually correct. I think it might have been Unchained, something like that. But this was going to have the Scarecrow in it. A script was written that the Scarecrow was obviously going to induce fear, as he does, and that fear was going to give visions of the Joker. So there was talks of Jack Nicholson reprising. But frankly, the sort of backlash to Batman.
You mean we're going to see the death of his parents again?
I would have thought so, actually, thinking about it. Yeah, but you've then got him talking about wanting to do Year One Schumacher, which I just don't know if he's right for that, but maybe, who knows. And then it goes through, as I say, that gets cancelled because terrible reviews, big drop in gross. So then there was talk of a Batman Beyond film. I seem to remember there was talk of Darren Aronofsky coming in and doing an adaptation of Year One. But Alfred in that was going to be a car mechanic called Big Al or something. There was a hell of a lot of sort of moving away from anything we understand as sort of the Batman mythos as we know it anyway. There was also next talk of a Batman Superman film.
Oh, God, yeah.
There was a script for that.
Was Arnie Hammer going to be in it with?
Yeah.
I've heard rumours of Colin Farrell and Jude Law. And what I've read of the script outline, I can barely remember, but it's to do with Bruce's wife getting killed, bit License to Kill. I think it's after their wedding. But it was going to be directed by Wolfgang Peterson. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I've heard rumours of lots of different people because Aronofsky, I know there was talk of Bale, but in this, I think it was Jude Law and Colin Farrell were certainly going to to be with that. This goes alongside all of the aborted Superman projects we've talked about before as well. I'm not quite sure why this one got canned, Batman versus Superman. I don't know if it's because, and Warner Brothers have had a habit of doing this over the years. They did it with Aquaman. They've done it with a few things lately. That they have a tendency to have competing scripts, and I do wonder if they just had competing scripts, so they ended up just getting binned.
I guess it was just all very up in the air at the moment, still trying to figure out, wasn't it? I mean, I guess it did. I think they probably just needed some time away from Batman, just let the wounds of Batman and Robin just sort of heal. And
I think that was wise. I mean, you could reboot it immediately, but I mean, they look what they tried. They tried that with Spider-Man right after Spider-Man 3. I know 4 or 5 years went by, but it was in production reasonably quickly as an idea, and I don't know, you end up being you learn all the wrong lessons, you know? You think, well, that was a bit silly, let's go really, dark or whatever.
Yeah.
I think you end up on the rebound from the previous film almost. I know that there was Joss Whedon I heard mentioned, but I know nothing about what he pitched. And then we come to what we know, that Christopher Nolan was hired. I believe he approached David S. Goyer because he wanted someone who knew the Batman mythos better than he did. And they basically sat in the garage at Nolan's house and planned all of this out.
Yeah, and it's the most linear one. I mean, the other films are very, very heavy in terms of themes and like ideas and also character developments as well. This one is very much like the more straightforward of the three.
It has a theme, but it's just telling us a story, and I it's probably all the better for it. In terms of, they did take a bit of a pump with this. It still cost $150 million. When you think, all right, he'd done Insomnia with Al Pacino and Robin Williams.
That was a good film.
It's one of my least favourite Nolans, but that's not to say it's not a good film.
I love it.
I just think the bar's quite high with Nolan.
Have you seen the original?
I think it's... Yeah, I have. That's a brilliant film as well.
So I haven't seen the original, but...
I'd probably say it's one of the rare times where the remake... Not that the original isn't very good, I still think it's excellent, but for me it's one of the rare exceptions where the remake is better than the original.
It's one of the few times the Nolan films bored me a bit.
It was really good. I love it.
There are shots in this. I mean, it is one of the Nolan films where, I mean, we'll probably see some moments in this film, but there are moments in Insomnia where you see some landscape shots. You think, fucking hell, he would make a good Bond film. You would.
I know.
He would in 2010 because he made Inception.
Well,
that wasn't a Bond film.
Technically, this Batman Begins is a Bond film. Technically, there are elements of it.
It's not technically, is it? You got to think about use of that word technically. There's no in it.
Well, it's kind of funny because Sam Mendes' huge inspiration for Skyfall was The Dark Knight, wasn't it? So
well, there we are. So
it's kind of goes back on each.
It obviously must be technically a Batman film. Then.
Must be.
Yes. He's an agent. He's got gadgets. He's got lots of money. He's got government agency behind him. Not government agency, but it's,
technically, it's a piece of theatre, but it's a film, really.
Obviously, I'm it's not a Bond film, obviously.
Obviously not. But at this point, Insomnia was reasonably successful. I believe it certainly had a reasonable critical response. But at this point, his big calling card was still Memento. Tiny film, not a huge amount of money behind it. A little art housey sort of curio, really, in a lot of ways.
Brilliant.
Technically, yes.
Using the right word, the right iteration of the word there. Obviously, I was joking before, but no, technically, it's a bit of a mini Marvel, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a fantastic film, Memento. If you've not seen it, folks, seek it out because it's
recommend it. Well worth your watch.
It's still in the argument for Nolan's best film, as far as I'm concerned. So to give him $150 million budget, I think, there's an element of risk in this, and it only came in at about 374. When you think the year after, they rebooted Superman. Well, they didn't reboot him, really, did they? They kind of did almost a continuation film. But they brought Superman back. It did about $25 million more. No, it didn't. It did about 15 or 16 more, thinking about it. I think it did about 390. And it did less in America than this one, but not by a lot. and that was deemed a failure, and Superman disappeared for another 7 years. It is. I suppose it's because it was, by comparison, only in inverted commas, $150 million, not well north of 200. But it wasn't the most massive success in the world. It's only done sort of 2.5 times its budget. But I think its critical response has probably been part of what powered it through to such successful sequels.
Do you think DC kind of like mildly kicking themselves, or DC and Warner Brothers, that the fact that they didn't have the idea of making it a shared universe while they're making Superman Returns and this film?
I don't know, is the honest answer to that. I don't know. I mean, they've clearly had the thought in the past, because they were talking of putting Batman Superman together. Whether it was going to be the big sort of Marvel experience, possibly not. But
it's something like that's never been done, has it?
No, and I think
in terms
also,
of universe, in terms of actual franchise, because I think the idea of Batman and Superman was kind of like more as its own established universe.
And I never wanted a crossover, Chris, if I'm honest. I mean, we'll get to Marvel. It's only a couple of series away until we'd like to start it anyway. But the end result with Marvel have been films that I think are good, frequently no better than good, but the universe it's more than the sum of its parts. The individual films half the time I just think are pretty decent, all right, but overall I think what they're achieving is tremendous. But at the same time, it wasn't something I ever wanted. I don't want Batman in a shared universe, really. He's got no powers, and you just think all of Gotham's problems could just be solved so easily by others if you're going to put him in that universe. But so, yeah, I don't know whether they kick themselves. If you wanted a shared universe, I don't think Nolan's the way to go.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, possibly I was thinking maybe if they got someone else rather than Nolan, or because I can't see Nolan doing that myself. I was just thinking it as an idea for the studio going forward, in terms of what we know now.
Yeah,
everything's sort of becoming shared, isn't it, these days?
It's like
it's got to the fucking point of stupidity now.
What we got like the Mummy, the horror movie shared
Universal
universe
Monsters series going to be in a shared universe. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that, to be honest. And they're even speaking about putting Bond in like a shared universe. I'm like, no, he belongs on his own.
Well, that's the weird thing, isn't it? I mean, like, I suppose when that came out about the doing the shared, I mean, what they're going to do? Have like a Miss Moneypenny film or something?
I think they were going to have the Felix Leiter spin-off, weren't they? And kind of other double O's and everything.
I don't want to see a Felix Leiter spin-off at all.
Well, that's it, exactly. I mean,
and
I think
then what's going to have? Other double O's, and it's like, well, that just devalues Bond if there's. It
really does, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it's just the trend at the moment, it's just the way things are going, and we'll see what happens. But whether we agree or not, that's another story.
I think it gets forgotten now that when you look back on Marvel's shared universe, when they threw Nick Fury in at the end of the credits for Iron Man, I think it was just a little Easter egg. I don't think they knew for certain by any means that was going to be the case. And really, it didn't kind of ramp up until sort of after Iron Man 2. They didn't make another film for a couple of years after The Incredible Hulk. So I think it was just something they wanted to do, something that they saw as possible, but it took a while to coalesce into anything. Whereas now, the moment they come up with a film idea, it's, well, how does this fit into a wider universe? And the Dark Universe is a perfect example of that. The idea around the Mummy, you hire Tom Cruise, which is quite lazy casting in itself, and it's going to be this shared universe. And it's like, well, put a couple of films out first and let's see if there's any appetite for it. Man of Steel came out, and whatever you think about it, it was a few months later they settled on, right, we're going to expand this out.
Yeah, from there, really.
It kind of is weird. Man of Steel just felt like again another like Nolan one-off. Well, like, not one-off, but in terms of like, well, there's no other universe beyond this because I can't see any of the characters adapting to it. So, and
it took them a while to figure out what that shared universe would look like anyway. Forget the quality for a minute, because people will be listening to this and go, well, it's shit anyway, apart from Wonder Woman or whatever. Forget what you think about it. I mean, I just put to mean the ideas. All sorts of things were coming out about how they were talking about having the John Blake character coming in from Dark Knight Rises and things like that. When they first announced Batman Superman, I don't think they had a clue what this universe was going to look like. And I just think, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, rather than announcing everything up front and having everything as a smaller part of a larger whole. And I think that's not how, and a lot of people find Christopher Nolan pretentious, but I certainly don't disagree with the attitude that he took during this series of concentrate on the film you're on. You know, a motion picture, it's a great privilege to make a motion picture with hundreds of millions of dollars put behind it. That's a great privilege, and to just see it as a setup for something else kind of almost devalues the work you're doing. And I think Marvel are almost the exception that proves the rule, rather than the blueprint for what everyone else should be doing.
Yeah, they seem to kind of like draw. They allow the filmmakers enough creative freedom to make the film they want. They just like they give them like the framework. Like, well, it needs to fit in this framework. Now you do what you can do, but in this kind of like framework that we need to fit in. And I think it's that kind of like that balance of, you know, of allowing creative freedom, but within their parameters of where they're heading in a direction.
So consequently, I went into this film just a little bit nervy, because I knew I'd like it. I've always liked it, but this producing a superhero film that fits into no larger narrative whatsoever, where they're in sort of functional things that don't look anything like their comic book counterparts, I think is almost becoming a museum relic now. But let's see how they did, folks. Shall we discuss this film sequentially?
Yeah, go on then.
Why not? Oh, why not?
It's Barry Norman.
The late great Barry Norman.
Barry Norman would have loved this.
He would have, you know.
Yeah. And before eating a jar of pickles.
All right.
He bought his own brand of jar of pickles, didn't he? So there we are.
So we start off with, as all the Nolan films start off, and you get like essentially the
creation of the bat signal.
Oh yeah, the bat symbol. This time it's dusk, in orange dusk, which is the color palette of the film.
Yes.
It kind of literally sets the color tone.
I don't know if you noticed. I really came up with this recently. That this is kind of almost like meant to be like sort of dusk, also like, and then sort of Dark Knight is kind of like sort of like a steely blue. Yeah. What would you say the colour palette of the Rises is? Would you kind of say it's like no one's done like a dusk, night, and dawn?
I think 2 and 3 are kind of similar, but yeah, it's kind of a blue versus kind of almost like a white.
Yeah, kind of blue, white, grey.
A lot of the last one is sort of in, well, obviously darkness with Bane, but then you've got like winter, haven't you, and snow and stuff. So I think the colour palettes are similar, but yeah, it's an even colder colour palette than the Dark Knight. This, by comparison, has quite a warm colour palette.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't look like the other films, partly because of money. An awful lot of what we see of Gotham, not the establishing shots, because they're largely CG with real buildings comped in, but with sort of the Narrows, that's all a set. And I don't think they use sets in 2 and 3 anywhere near as much. And so consequently, 2 and 3 feel more of a piece than this does.
Yeah.
With any of them.
But I think that's what I kind of like about this, though. I like how it uses a mixture of both. I mean, Nolan has done more practical, real-world settings than he does CGI. He prefers that as a choice, you know.
Yeah.
But I do like the aesthetic. It makes it feel more of a lived-in world. That, you know, it feels more of a comic book world, you know. So I think something is lost in the other films. I think it just feels like, well, you know, just feels like the streets in New York, or just feels like the streets of Chicago.
You can stylize this one a little bit better, because the Narrows doesn't really exist anywhere in the real world, and it looks realistic without looking real.
Yeah.
And that's both to its. I think it's both a plus point and a minus point, actually, because it makes the film look a little bit cheaper. But at the same time, I always think Batman works a little bit better in something a little bit more stylized.
Definitely.
But yeah, I do like in all 3 films that sort of brief, oh, it's the bat symbol, and then we're on to something else. In the second one, it's in blue fire, effectively, isn't it?
Yeah, blue fire and an ice breaking.
One, it's in ice.
Yeah,
ice breaking. And then we cut straight to a very young Bruce playing with Rachel.
It's kind of, it kind of like goes like it starts from like a sweeping camera shot as the two like kind of play chasing each other.
Yeah.
They're doing the finders keepers things. And what is it that Rachel grabs? Is it like an arrowhead or is it like a stone?
It is almost. I don't know if it's a real. I think it's a stone that is shaped like an arrowhead.
Right. Okay. I didn't know if it's that, or maybe it was like a stone in the shape of a leaf. It's.
It looks like an arrowhead to me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I always thought it was an arrowhead, but. But whatever, she finds something. It's like a thing that they have. They put the finders keepers. Young Bruce sort of grabs it and runs off and hides, and then he hides like inside like an old well, and the wood underneath.
Well,
cracks.
he actually, he's on top of a sort of covered over well.
Yeah.
I don't think he realizes, does he? He's just hiding behind something, and then the wood gives way underneath him.
Yeah, and he falls down, and then it like, and then Rachel.
That imagery is echoed in the final film when he's in prison.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's broken his arm.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's on the floor, and Rachel goes to get some help.
Yeah, and you get a big scope of like the big mansion that obviously it's filmed in England this bit, but I just love the look of Wayne Manor in this.
Yeah, it's pretty epic, doesn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, and then he gets engulfed by bats, which kind of straight onto symbolises the what he kind of goes to be afraid of, and you cut straight to older Bruce in a foreign land in a foreign prison.
Just want to make a quick point about those bats, because the only time we've seen this represented to this point was in Batman Forever, where it's this almost elegant bat flying with a light background towards him.
I remember watching.
This is a shock on the big screen, because there's a silence, then a slight rumble. You can understand how this has traumatized him.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Rather than having a big, huge bat flapping in his face.
Yeah. And then, you're right. He's now in prison.
Yeah, he's in prison. We don't know. I mean, it's kind of odd storytelling this for the first part, but I think what Becca was saying in terms of like she had issues with the editing. I had a few issues with it, just because it just felt a little bit. God, we just let the scene breathe a little bit. But then
sometimes it does get a bit too choppy for its own good.
But then again, but I understand why, because it's a neat way to kind of like get a lot of information in fast. And if it,
yeah, definitely. I'm not saying that just because I don't understand what they're trying to do, but it's kind of it's the birth of like shaky cam and all that kind of style of editing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think of this film as particularly shaky cam, if I'm honest, but I'm happy to be disagreed with.
No, I don't. I wouldn't call it shaky cam.
No, I'm not. It's more kind of like really frenetic sort of style use of the camera, but just in terms of the editing and how choppy it is. But no, I mean, it's not. It's one of my most minor grumbles about this film. That's largely, probably 8 or 9 out of 10, I would say.
Action-wise, this scene gives me more problems than almost anything else in the film, because the problem is it is quite a difficult scene to balance, because when you think about it, we're about to go through a lot of him being trained to fight. So you can't have a properly well-shot film of him fighting extraordinarily well before he's trained, but at the same time you have to have that there's enough natural talent there that he's fought off 6 or 7 prisoners, most of them bigger than him, and all in there for quite nasty things. So it's quite difficult, but I always thought that, hang on a minute, we've been introduced to this guy, we have one shot of his face, and the first action scene we immediately cover them all in mud and can't tell who anyone is. I don't think that's good.
Yeah.
No, it gets a bit confusing, doesn't it? I think.
I mean, it does have a good joke where he's just sort of like, I don't need protection, no protection from them. He squares up. He's meant to sort of like built up that this guy's always kind of been picking on him, but he's also sort of considering him practice. So he's like, obviously he's going around the place. He's been fighting loads of people. I think what happens in terms of when he gets put into the cell and Ducard's there. It's not about necessarily his fighting skills. It's about his focus and his attitude, really. It's more about it's more psychological rather than it's drive, giving him purpose, because he's still trying to find himself. Really, he doesn't, he doesn't quite know. He hasn't really sort of found himself. He's not confronted his fear yet. He's just kind of like he's basically just running away from himself. So I think to go into like the training aspect is more to do with that rather than like, well, your hand-to-hand combat. That plays into it, obviously, but yeah. So Ducard is there magically,
and I actually think this is for me the Achilles heel of Nolan films. I was about to say Nolan's Achilles heels, but obviously each of his films are kind of written by different people. Sometimes it's him, as in Inception. Sometimes it's Brother. Sometimes it's David S. Goyer. Sometimes it's some combination thereof. But I do find the dialogue that comes out of Ducard very perfunctory, very about getting themes and ideas across as efficiently as possible.
So you think, do you talk a bit too plainly for you? A bit too like, let's make it completely obvious?
I think so. I think I've got that problem all the way through the films, and I think it's worse in the third one. It's never been a massive problem, but I think there are better dialogue writers out there than whoever tends to work on the average Nolan films.
What do you think of Leslie Nielsen?
Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen. I thought he was really funny. What's the relevance of that?
Oh my god! I'm just thinking of Leslie Nielsen in this film training.
Batman Squad.
Nice beaver.
Okay, so I mean that might
Liam
be
Neeson,
the biggest non sequitur ever. I'm talking about the dialogue skills and a scene between like Yoda and Batman, effectively. And you ask me what I think of Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, what do you think of Liam Neeson in this role?
It didn't even occur to me that's what you meant. I was like, what about? The great thing about Liam Neeson, and it followed right the way through to sort of the Taken films and things like that, is he has aged so well and kept himself so fit that you believe he's a 50 or 60 something, depending on the film, who can kick your ass and knows a bit of life as well. I can totally get why you would cast Liam Neeson into this role.
I was going to say, I can't think of anyone better to play the. I don't want to play. Okay, should we say Ra's al Ghul? I was going to sort of like show you.
Oh no, let's just do it. It's fine.
Because
he's old now. Come on, you've had time to get over it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that surprising.
No,
is it really?
Keno Watanabe spilt his Guinness when he found out he wasn't the real Ra's al Ghul.
Ken Van Watanabe.
But it's
like his Murphys. He wasn't.
Well, given the fact that he's got the beard as well.
I kind of think his sort of facial hair in this film looks a bit fake. I don't know if it is or it isn't. It just, to me, it does look a little bit faux fur.
Yeah.
But no, he's definitely Liam Neeson's got he's got the physical presence.
He could get into ISIS because he could grow beard in half an hour, no problem.
But no, you do believe that whatever his age, he's gonna kick your ass and not give a shit about it, basically.
Yeah, but he's got a good sense of mentorness about him, like sort of worldly kind of.
He can play smart as well.
Yeah.
If you want to know why he's leader, good or bad, hire Leslie Nielsen. Liam Neeson.
Hire Leslie Nielsen.
I think that's my favourite. Apart from.
So for the rest of the film, when Batman's hair gets messed up, he can turn to another camera and it's perfect. Just like Leslie Nielsen. So he tells him to go and find some hill that has a certain blue flower.
Yeah. And then bring it to the temple. So basically, he's got to like find. He gets released, which I'm not sure how long he's been in prison for. Or what? I mean, if it was he just like they're there for a week, how does it work? Who
knows?
Anyway, so he travels. He's found the flower. He goes up to the temple. He finds Leslie Nielsen. I'm just going to call him that from now on. And it's going to be
Leslie Nielsen. It's just fucking with the images in my head now.
And
I mean, that would have worked if it was Adam West Batman, I guess.
oh yeah,
Anyway, go on. Sorry. So he gets to the temple. He's exhausted.
yeah. And then he sort of challenged him to a fight. He said, "Death does not allow you to wait," and then basically just kicks his ass. And then
I had a bit of a Roger Moore stroke Austin Powers flashback on this because he was naming the martial arts forms he was doing as he was kicking.
oh yeah, judo,
jiu-jitsu, judo, chop. All he was missing was that hanging bar that he can jump up and kick.
yeah.
Yeah.
But he does name all the kind of styles. He goes, this style, this style. And he sort of tells him, it's like, you're afraid, but not of me. What's this you're afraid of? And then you cut back to younger Bruce, where he's getting picked up from his dad,
That's right. Yeah.
from William Roach Jr.
From Ken Barlow Jr. who's only had half the women that his granddad had. On this trajectory, Batman's going to have 250.
Yes.
Oh dear, foreign listeners just going, what are they on about? It's a real nondescript soap.
Go to YouTube and
This
just
guy's been in
type
it
in
about
Coronation Street, and he's been
50
in
odd
it
years.
forever.
Yeah. But he's had loads of girlfriends and wives and stuff like that. But in real life, he ended up admitting in court that he's had like nearly 1,000 women.
Yeah.
Like,
He's a bit of a ladies' man, shall we say.
And when you look at him, you're just like, well, there's nothing wrong with him, but fucking hell, really? This is not Gene Simmons, trust me. But his son, Linus Roach, is Thomas Wayne in this film. Where do they go from there?
Well,
we don't go to the yet, do we? Or do
no.
we?
Well, no. He picks him up. He gets carried in. He meets. We see Alfred, Michael Caine's Alfred.
And you get that line, why
yeah.
Paul?
Yeah.
So we can learn to pick ourselves up.
And then we have Thomas tells him that the bats were scared of him. It's like so it's also that sort of symbol of like sort of they were especially scared of you. You were scared of them. They were even more scary, even scary ones. Which kind of plays into the psyche of how he goes about being Batman.
And actually, if you think about it, it means that when he becomes Batman, there's nothing to say he won't still feel some fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get that. And then so he's made that point. And then they get cut straight to when they're on that train, on that kind of like overhead subway.
That's right. So again, the film very much being laid out through dialogue, which is very much a Nolan trait. But I've always liked this. I mean, one of the things that did come along with the sort of Frank Miller era and stuff was this argument that if Batman's that good, why is the city so fucked up, or why do the cops need him so bad, and that sort of thing. And the point is they're corrupt, and that is very, very important. And as a result of it's just a diseased city. And I like this take of the Wayne family seeing poverty as a tragedy, and doing what they can to alleviate the suffering of others.
I mean, he even has him like sort of like, I work at the hospital.
Yeah.
You know. So
and he says, better people than me. Better, well, more interested.
Yeah.
Perhaps, people who can focus a bit better. The only thing is, there's a certain ego to it. It all leads to that, and he points at this massive Wayne Tower.
Yeah.
It's cheap public transportation was the whole idea. So with the family fortune, or some of the family fortune, he's built this sort of elevated train network.
Yeah, which isn't focused on any others, but it kind of gets destroyed in this one, doesn't it? So I guess.
But again, Gotham doesn't look remotely the same in any of the rest of the films. There's one or two streets that do. One or two streets do. The street that leads up to Wayne Tower, which is the same building they used for the Daily Planet in the new universe, it looks the same, but very little of it does. You got wide establishing shots of Gotham in this film, and they're CG. In later films, you get a wide establishing shot, and it's clearly New York, and you just go, I don't really like the lack of continuity in the look at all.
You think
I don't mind. Well, I don't mind the idea. I mean, when they said they started using Pittsburgh for Rises, and they said, and Nolan made the point, well, it could be different parts of the town. And I thought, yeah, I'll buy into that. But on wide establishing shots, just to throw in shots of what are so obviously New York, I just thought, why can't you...
Especially with CGI, you can make like an interesting meld of two different...
vary it, because they're using real buildings and stuff like that in there. And I just think you already had it in Batman Begins, use that. I didn't like that, and I didn't like the idea of getting rid of the Narrows, because the Narrows is meant to be the sort of crime central, but it's on an island. And I like it when Arkham's on an island and Arkham is in the Narrows.
Yeah.
So there are bits of the geography of this film that we kind of lose later on. And I do like it here. I do like it a lot. But yeah, they're on the way to the opera, because they're all, well, father and son are wearing dinner jackets, and obviously she's wearing a dress with pearls, because they always wear pearls.
Who's she?
Martha!
Sorry.
Also called Martha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get there.
They go into the theatre. We have like, is it an opera?
It is an opera. I've forgotten the name of it now, to be honest with you. I did know at one point, but it is an opera. Obviously, in the original lore, they were at the cinema. They went to see The Mark of Zorro in the original layout.
Okay.
In the new continuity, i.e. the Batfleck continuity, I think they were going to see Excalibur. But yeah, it's the opera here.
They're seeing Excalibur?
Yeah, go and watch Batman Superman again.
Okay, was that?
I think they're walking out from Excalibur.
That's
the 1981 version. Yeah. And when you think of the age of Ben Affleck, that'd be about right.
Yeah, you have to kind of age it properly, don't you? I think.
It could have been The Mask of Zorro or something. But yeah.
Was that a randomly chosen film, or? I
couldn't tell you for the Batfleck version, but when I think there's an awful lot of Zorro in Batman as an idea, I can sort of see why you go and see The Mark of Zorro.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's an opera here where there are presences on stage where they look like bats in silhouette anyway.
And it kind of like flashes to like seeing like screeching bats, wheeling bats. It's kind of like you kind of get the impression of him kind of still traumatized by it.
But he's only about 10, isn't he? So he's terrified.
Yeah. So he wants to leave, and Thomas Wayne doesn't make a big deal of it. He goes, "Yeah, come on, let's get out of here."
Oh, it's my fault. I love that as well. He takes it all for his son. I actually think this boy does a pretty good job.
Yeah, he's quite effective, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not...
What, the young kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's not annoying.
Well,
some directors can be quite annoying, but he's really effective.
Yeah, that's a big bar to jump.
Yeah. It's not be irritating.
Or scary.
Yeah. So they leave out a back alley, which I guess is one of the things that always get criticised about this story.
Why don't you just go out the fucking foyer? Unless they didn't want to be seen going out, though. Maybe it was some gala event because it was an opera, and of course he's the richest man in town.
Could be. I mean, it's never really explained, but I think for the purpose of what happens, it's like it'll be difficult to sort of like have that done in the open.
Well, you never get Martha going like, "Why are we going this way, you bellend?"
Yeah.
We're really rich. Why are we going down somewhere called Crime Alley?
And then, so Joe Chill, a character who is then named as Joe Chill, basically mugs him, and he drops the wallet, doesn't he? Or on purpose, or was just accident?
No, I wouldn't swear, but I think it was an accident.
Yeah.
I think the guy is jittery and a bit shaky.
Yeah.
So when he puts his hand out to grab it, there's that moment of they don't know who's holding it, and it just gets dropped.
I like how this plays out, because you do get the impression that he is very, very nervous, very kind of like you can tell it's not just a flat out just a bastard murdering robber. He's just someone who is desperate.
There's a tragedy to poverty in this continuity. It's quite political in its way, this film, and there's a tragedy to poverty, and even later when you see him in court for like what I assume is a parole hearing. I didn't know they were held publicly like that. Perhaps they are. He looks like a guy from the wrong side of the tracks trying to smarten himself up for court. I think he's really well cast.
I mean, yeah. To answer the public one, that there was a bit of dialogue that Rachel says that the judging system are making it public, which was like insinuating the corruption that is under Marconi's rule.
Okay.
So to make the public to be able to assassinate him. I thought I just might throw in that might answer the question. But so there is that desperation even when Wayne gets shot. It's more done out of like a sudden movement more than anything, and panic, and even when he shoots Martha, there's like it just seems like he just goes off just out of just trying to get the diamonds, and he just pegs it as soon as he gets it. So it's not rather than just so it just does feel very sort of more real world. You kind of get the sense of like why this how happened the way it did, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people criticise this scene. I'm never quite sure on the basis of what, but I've heard people podcasted with people, with you in fact, and others, that where I've heard them say I had a problem with the Nolan Crime Alley as well, but that was in the context of talking about the DC Extended Universe version, and I hate that version, where he throws the first punch and the gun has to go right up in her face under her pearls. I just think it's really overdone. Here you've just got the tragedy of poverty, and it's all very well acted. Thomas is very calm under pressure and stress, which is something he'll have to hand over to his boy.
The only thing I had with it is I'm not sure after getting shot and your wife getting shot to be talking to your son is like, hey, I'm gonna give you the moral thing. It's okay. You don't have. I was thinking, I don't buy that necessarily. I'd just be like,
would that really?
Yeah.
Could it really happen? I struggle with that a little bit as well.
That was the only part of it that I was like, okay.
And there's a lot made about basically kind of how they blame Thomas and how he failed to act, and how he could have done more. So there's a lot of kind of blame placed on him. But I think it's a little bit unfair. But yeah, I was a little bit like, really? But otherwise, no, I think it's it's simply done. It doesn't go into like too much detail. You do see dichotomy between kind of the poverty and crime. And I think it's a well done scene.
Yeah.
Compared to what we've seen before in iterations.
Yeah, so I was happy with it. Where do we go from there?
We go straight to the scene where he's in the police station. It's actually quite a
of course, yeah.
Gordon puts his dad's coat
on him. Around him.
Yeah, which Lovely. Is a good introduction for Gary Oldman's Gordon. It plants the seed of someone he can trust later on, and it just shows us what a good guy he is under
It's like Gordon Dickens as well, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, kind of.
Well, it is really, because he's a sergeant at this point.
Yeah, he goes sergeant, then lieutenant, and then eventually ended up as commissioner, won't he? So.
Yeah. If you look at just the point, we talk about influences on different parts of this film. Jim Gordon here is the Batman Year One Jim Gordon. If you go and look that up in an image search, Gary Oldman looks exactly like him.
Yeah. It's like just a thinner version with a moustache, isn't it, really?
It's really. There's scenes later on. The first time they sort of come across each other, where he goes out at night dressed all in black, but he's not Batman yet. It's from Year One as well. I've always liked this scene. I just think it was important to do that, to just show the boy a little bit of compassion, because we know he's got Alfred, but there's always been something austere about him being brought up in this massive fucking mausoleum of a place by an old man dressed formally. I just like that there was that bit of human connection for him after the worst night.
Yeah.
And he would never have forgotten Jim Gordon after that, would he?
No, and I think it plays nicely into Rises when it references that scene again in that film. That does strike a little bit of emotional tear for me. So
I agree.
So we get that scene. Where do we go to next?
We must go back, biologically, we must go back to the training in Ducard and that.
It kind of flips between, doesn't it? It kind of hops and jumps between the two.
I think, talking about editing, I know you mean choppiness and fighting and all the rest of it, but how this first act of the film is cut together, we never get too much of any one thing. and we get the things we need to get. So we've had him as
it's really easy to follow. I mean, sometimes, I'm in terms of editing, I think it's probably where I'm getting a bit older, maybe, but I kind of like to know what's going on. And there are some action scenes in this film that are perhaps it's a little bit too choppy, just for my liking. But I think in terms of the opening scenes of this film, where you flip between the different timelines, that's perfectly fine. It's done in such a way that you can still comprehend what's going on, and they feed into each other really well. So you kind of do get that really good narrative flow.
But it's sometimes you think, oh my god, can you just let the scene breathe a little bit, or like? But it's, I would
it's got
say,
a lot to get through though, and it's already a 2-hour, 20-minute film.
I would say you would be
It's going to be a 2 hour, 4 hour, 40-minute podcast.
I would say this.
We're going to JBR territory.
I would say this for Nolan, and he does it in Inception. Really, it's a good way to get information, or a lot of information in a lot of time, but also it actually adds element of pace to it as well. So even with scenes where it's just basically just scenes of people just talking to each other, there is a very succinct piece to that.
If you went through Lydia from where he fell in to that thing, all through his parents getting shot, then through like him in prison, then through his training. Actually, between that, you would have him going to shoot Joe Chill and all the stuff we're going to get to. But it would just feel like the most interminable kind of when are we going to get to the point? But because they cross-cut so well, sometimes it's clearly what Bruce is thinking about at that point. Clearly it's a point where he has to almost get something across to Ducard. Sometimes it's telling us why he's there at that point. How the hell did he end up thousands of miles from home by himself when he's one of the richest men in the world? So, I think it's quite masterfully done. I think before we go to the training, I think I'm right in saying...
We have the funeral, don't we?
It's the last bit where we see the little boy before it becomes... where he's saying it was my fault, Alfred.
Yeah.
And isn't he so warm, Alfred? There.
He says what his dad says, doesn't he? He says, "Why are we for?" Which is kind of it is there, isn't it? Yeah, he does say that.
I'm not sure, but he says it was nothing. He said it was my fault, Alfred, if I didn't want to leave, and he's saying it's nothing you did.
Yeah. It was him alone. And he does sort of reiterate the sort of like why do we fall kind of mantra, which plays later on, and
it's kind of repeated all the way through, isn't it?
And not till the very end, but
not all the way through. Essential points.
Yeah, but you think about it, it does this cross-cut between the training and the backstory only in the first 40 minutes, and then from that it's very linear. So it's So we get to the training where there's more training. There's fighting on the ice.
Yeah, the fighting on the ice is a really nice scene. I've always liked that. I think it looks beautiful for a start.
Yeah,
and it's. I think the more I think about it, everything Ducard is saying is about teaching Bruce to both channel his feelings and control them. He's just basically blames his parents and says it was their fault and all the rest of it. Well, I don't think for a second, despite the fact Ducard has some pretty hardcore ideas, particularly about the indulgence of crime, I'm not sure he means that. I think he's saying it to wind Bruce up. Yeah,
I think there is an element of that. I mean, it's not really explored because it does feel like the film is making a point of saying that. But watching it now,
that if you indulge crime, you'll be a victim of it. So him always allowing, treating criminals as victims of poverty, I think there is an element of yes, it was his fault, but I don't think he's saying he pussied out on the night and that's why he was shot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's an element of that, of like the will to act, as he would put it. But he says, but I think from that principally is kind of saying, you are responsible for your own path. You can always do something, and if you're not willing to do anything, and just accept being a victim, then you are always going to be the victim. In a
criminals thrive on the indulgence, wasn't it? Indulgence of society or something like that. So I think he semi means it.
Yeah.
But I think for the purposes of the training session they're in the midst of.
Yeah.
Even if he thought no such thing, it's a way to wind Bruce up.
I mean, even with the fighting on the ice, we get other little sort of training, or like cuts to another training thing where he's talking about like like art of theatricality or are important elements to strike fear in enemies and things like that, and you need to become more than a man in their eyes. You know, in other words, you need to become like more
a legend.
Yeah, legend, Mr. Wayne. So yeah, again,
legendary.
It's the fighting. It's when I talked about the action before at the beginning of the show, it was more against the way the fighting scenes. Like there was some times where I felt like I would have liked to have actually seen some of the moves, because I know a lot of work would have gone into it. So I'd have liked to have seen that. But it was all based
around this Casey style, wasn't it? Which is all very close in. You use elbows, everything you can. It's purely about efficiency. So it isn't the most picturesque fighting style anyway.
Granted.
And it's a mixture of styles, isn't it? Because there's a bit of like
there's a mixture of other. Yes, it is.
Yeah, there's a bit of like Krav Maga, which kind of like using your opponent's strength against you, sort of thing as well.
But we'll get to a scene next week, which I really, really love, and I won't spoil it exactly now. But we get to a scene next week that overall I really enjoy, but we get a much better look at the Casey, and it doesn't look as good as a result. I actually kind of like the choppiness in this film when it comes to Batman being Batman.
Yeah,
because it's meant to be bewildering.
No, I get it. I do get it, and I know and I understand that in some elements of Casey where it doesn't. You look at it, think, well, it doesn't actually look that cinematic. I think there's probably you can go license and use parts of it. You can maybe sort of grandize it just a little bit, but when it's all just choppy chop, I can't actually see what's going on at all.
There's at least one scene it works perfectly in, though, and you probably know off the top of your head which one I'm on about.
Yeah, definitely. And I would agree with you in that instance, because that's how it should be. So
he's training. We keep cutting between that. We're also he's clearly being taught about the theatricality of, like, effectively what we know in sort of Batman lore as sort of smoke pellets. Effectively, just like you saw in the first film, or the first Burton film, just distract with a big sort of gassy fucking fart or something. Yeah, and he's also being taught about close-in. We're being taught what the gauntlets mean on his arm, what that's for. We are being taught. So yeah, we're being taught the sort of the point of parts of the outfit he's later going to wear. But we also cross.
That's interesting kind of genesis of it, because we've seen those aspects before, haven't we? So it's kind of good to see it all come together.
See why they are. They're in both Batman uniforms. But we go cut as well to him at. I think he'd had a year at college, so he'd have been about 19, wouldn't he? He'd had a year at college and he'd quit. Yeah. And he's at home, and
it's Ivy League.
He's come home for the parole hearing. So at this point, Joe Chill would have been in prison about 9 or 10 years. But he had a cell with, wasn't Falcone itself, it was one of Falcone's men.
Yeah, it was minions.
So he's got information the state could use.
Yeah. So we cut to floppy-haired Bruce Wayne and Christian Bale.
It's quite effective, though. He looks a lot younger.
He does. It's amazing what a haircut can do. I think he's one of those actors, like, they really will have to work to make him look old. He's got one of those faces that probably will age quite well. You can kind of believe him being sort of like 19, 20, and then obviously later on in the film, Joan's birthday scene, we see him turn 30, and that's equally believable.
Yeah,
I think he's got those good features. He's got a young looking face.
I think what helps is no one around him is 19. I think if you
had
a 19-year-olds, it would stand out. But what I'm saying is, we know it's the same actor. We know Christian Bale's coming up around the 30 mark at this point.
Yeah.
So to actually
kind of
be able to just
in the series,
for you to look at it and not go, that looks fucking ludicrous.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been some kind of digital work on his face. I don't know. But the only kind of, I think obviously Rachel Holmes, not Rachel Holmes.
Rachel Holmes.
Katie Holmes. I just she's just got like baby face. I mean, you would have to work to make her look a bit old. I mean, they tried to do the same with her as well. But no, I must say I've got the hots for Christian Bale. I must admit. But it's totally believable. It's amazing what a proper haircut would do. Pardon?
Even with his weird eye wart.
Yeah, that looks a bit weird, and his lisp and all this. But no,
he
looks good.
You know what? Things like that always bother me. When you're like someone like Christian Bale, I think just get rid of it. Why wouldn't you just get
Go
rid
and
of
get it
it?
looked at. Just
Yeah,
go to
they
the
can
doctor.
freeze
and
the
say, "Look,
fucking thing and it will just fall off.
I've got this thing here. Just get removed. Take it out. Roger Moore had that mold removed, didn't he? So I can't. Christian Bale do
What
the
thing
same.
is that, Becca? I don't know.
I don't know.
Tom Holland's done that with Spider-Man, hasn't he?
I don't know. Have they done that digitally, or have they got rid of it?
I think he's gotten rid of it. I think.
Right.
I would have
Because
thought
this
they
first
would.
thing when they cast him, I thought, well, if you did the Mary Jane Watson type scene where you saw his chin, it would immediately give it away, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah.
But I didn't know.
Let's get rid of
But
it
it's
somehow.
like Tom Hardy, his tattoos get digitally removed in most of his
Yeah.
films, so maybe it was digital. I don't know.
I don't know. But
well.
but anyway, I was.
Maybe in a future film we'll see it. I don't know.
it will come back. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, fair. It will just grow back, or they'll just go. We can't be asked to digitally remove it this time.
In a nutshell, he's my still a cat.
Just put a Spider-Man sticker on top of it.
Okay, so he's at home. Katie Holmes sees him, and he's going on about I can't sanction this because it's my parents, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And she's effectively just talking about the greater good, that they can use that to trap a bigger fish, more or less.
Yeah. Basically getting that point, and he's basically sort of still holding back the grudge. It's like, no, he killed my parents. It cannot happen. There's a established fact that he's been away. He's lived away anyway. Like he's been at college or wherever he's been. He doesn't like hanging around Wayne Manor due to too many memories. He doesn't plan on coming back. Hence why he's accepting the fact that he's probably going to get arrested now because of what he's going to do. And also Alfred tells him gives him a lecture of more about the legacy of Wayne Manor. There's an element of he doesn't care. He tear this place down.
It's not just your name.
Yeah, and I
later as well.
Yeah, I only really noticed it when he later on he mentions tear it down brick by brick, and in that conversation, and Bruce says to him, "You not give up on me, have you?" And Alfred says, "Never," which comes back later on. So there's a lot of recurring echoes, particularly the brick by bit bit, which I kind of right, yeah, of course.
Yeah, bear in mind we're only 40 minutes or so into this film.
Not even
very
that,
dense.
30 minutes.
Yeah, we're very it's a very dense film at this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we go to court. We go to that sort of court hearing where does anyone object, and then walking out, and then
And we see Bruce has got almost like a little. We don't have real many guns in this country, but it's the sort of gun you'd get in a lady's handbag, isn't it? He's got this very small concealed gun up his sleeve, ready to shoot Joe Chill.
And then
and he's going to. The only thing that stops him is someone else gets him first.
Yeah.
The Harvey Oswald style.
Yeah.
It's a woman, isn't it? Just sort of flat, just point blank.
Hi, Joe.
Yeah. And then Rachel drives him home.
Yeah.
Or goes to drive him home. And he opens up to her.
Yeah, he's been all mopey. He's sort of basically saying the system's flawed and how when he's
the system is broken.
Yeah. And he's sort of saying I should be thanking him, and Rachel's like, right, okay, right, fine. Well, let me show you what is really fucking happening. So he takes him down the tunnels. Is it taking down there as well, or is that just?
No, I think she just takes him to these tunnels. Because from the outside, it looks like she's just driving into a parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is sort of tunnels underneath the city. Well, I don't know if it's underneath the city. But she takes him to areas of poverty. That's all that really matters. And it ends up at Falcone's club. Before he goes into that club or restaurant, I don't mean nightclub, I mean sort of members club or whatever it is.
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, bar, restaurant.
Before that, he shows her the gun and she slaps him and says, your parents would be ashamed.
I think she's really good in that bit.
Yeah, she's got a good scene, isn't she? I think.
I don't have a problem with Katie Holmes at all. She was the thing that got slaughtered in this film.
No, she was okay. I just think you didn't really have the kind of effective screen time. But I think now she's kind of too tied up with obviously her association with Tom Cruise and negative connotations and what have you. I think she's. I was going to say. I said earlier that there's kind of not really any weak link. I mean, she might be but very minor. But no, she's really good in this scene, I think.
Well, I think the character of Rachel is, to an extent, is more problematic. As they're more treated as like ideals of, or like kind of like I don't want to say prize. Like I was like an objection.
She's the trophy at the end.
I don't think she's the trophy. I think she's the goal.
Yeah,
and that's a very different thing.
Yeah,
well, she's still very much, even though she's like the DA or whatever, she's still very much the love interest, isn't she? But I still think, you know, she's still well-rounded. We do get a sense of who she is, where she's come from.
She is, like, at least in Bruce Wayne's head, the idealised of where he wants to be. You know, he wants the future with her. Whether she actually generally is that person, though.
Next week. No, I mean, next week we get Maggie Gyllenhaal in the role. We'll talk about why next week.
Yeah.
But for now, the general perception is Maggie Gyllenhaal's a much better actress and it's a useful recast and all the rest of it. My personal view on it is when I see Maggie Gyllenhaal interviewing villains and stuff and offering them a deal or whatever, I believe that she has the guts to do that more than I believe little Katie Holmes doing it. But I think Katie Holmes' flaws are so minor, really, that I'd rather have had her for the sake of continuity.
Yeah. And plus, she might have surprised you as well. It could be one of the things where, like, you know what, she proved me wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, from being shallow, I think Katie Holmes is much more attractive than Maggie Gyllenhaal. But that really doesn't matter. If it had been Maggie Gyllenhaal in the first film, it's what Bruce wants, and you would still buy she's a rounded human being and intelligent woman and all the rest of it. I think she is a better actress, but I think I would much rather... I think it would have been much more impactful next week had that been Katie Holmes, particularly as she sells me distress a lot better than Maggie Gyllenhaal does.
And she's a bit more... I think she strikes me as a lot more idealist and innocent as well. She's a lot more of like the general good person. If maybe a little naive, she is. She is like you believe it that she is like one of the good people working in.
Well, I think not only that, Chris. It's the sort of town where things are so bad that someone refusing to get involved in the corruption looks naive.
Yeah,
it's because it's such a danger to them not to.
Mm.
So he goes into the club now, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, she slaps him and he throws the gun away because he like.
I think he realises what he's holding.
Yeah, and then
that's we don't need guns.
So therefore he's now pinned up now. He's like thinking, right, I'm going to really show this Marconi guy what I really think.
Yeah.
and then
he's on my mind.
And this is what I meant at the beginning of the show, where I really like his performance because I think Tom Wilkins sell it. Forget his accent. I mean, like I'm kind of
forget the accent. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm kind of like deaf to it anyway, but
yeah, I'm not. I can't pretend to be an expert, but it just jars me. It's just.
But it's more how he just completely just chews him out. I mean, it's probably good writing as well, but it's also like sort of he goes into sort of like in terms of like power when he just lifts a gun up and says, "Look, I could blow your head off and it will make a fucking difference." And also he just sort of gives him a lecture of like, you know, about you always fear what you don't understand, you know.
A bit in that there's two or three things in that I really love, and it really hit me today. I mean, I will have noticed before because I've seen this countless times over the years, but it really hit me for the first time in a while this morning. That you think, well, why does he go off for so long and all the rest of it? You always fear what you don't understand, so he needs to understand the criminal mind, and that is in dialogue, he says to Ducard. But he also says to him, you've never tasted desperate. So he needs to be somewhere with no resources, and there's two or three things about that. Firstly, he gets to understand how criminals work, and it isn't as straightforward as Ducard makes out. There is some element of poverty. His father was at least part right. So it plays into so much, and it gives us a problem with the third film as well, because he actually says to him, you'd have to go 1,000 miles to find somebody who didn't know your name. One of the most famous men in the world. But the thing I think it does exonerate is this business of how does he get back to Gotham. Bruce Wayne has 7 years getting around the world with very few resources, learning what he needs to learn about Falcone's world, or the world to which Falcone alludes.
I like one of the things I picked up from this viewing is I didn't realize how like the morality of like of him kind of technically not being a criminal, like
he's stealing from Wayne Enterprises.
Yeah, so he's like, well, technically I'm stealing from myself, so
yeah. But
so,
I mean, he does say something about stealing some food. I don't know if he said an apple or whatever.
Yeah.
Perhaps we can cover that later. Fruit, Chris. But we don't see the apple. It's like penthouse letters as opposed to photos. So I think then we move on to. So he gives the old guy, the villain from Taken 2, his coat.
Yeah.
And then he goes to. He disappears. We've already seen some of that in his training.
Yeah.
We then have the sort of. Do we have the final sort of challenge of his training now, where he's supposed to kill somebody?
He sort of So he jumps on a boat, and then Ducard gives him. Yeah, basically it's his final train where he displays how the flour is actually grinded into sort of like a powder that makes like a gas, or like that provides your inner fear. So he must inhale this and become like part of this kind of like test to kind of like up Ducard. But he needs to confront the fears of his own fears of like bats flying at him. So that you do become. So he does have to like confront his fears to pass the test.
Which he does no problem.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good scene, but in the basis of sort of getting through this, the final thing he has to do is put someone to death.
Yes, it's like the initiation is like, okay, well now you must do like what is necessary, you know, which you would have thought would have been discussed beforehand, but okay. You've gone through all that.
I've got to do what? Hang on, I didn't sign anything, did I?
But this is where you get the moral code. And I think you kind of see the ideas of what Rachel has said, or Alfred and Thomas Wayne. You know what is instilled from his origin, as in where he comes from, and how he implicits to what he's learnt now. And he's
justice and vengeance aren't the same thing.
Yeah, and you sort of had this kind of like I can't do this. This is one step too far. This is like yeah, absolutely. And he sort of he does try and gets his point. It's like I will go to Gotham and I will lead his men, but I will fight people like this, but I will not become one of them. And he Ducard like warns about compassion, and he kind of goes, right, well I'm kind of in a corner here, so he then proceeds to blow the place up essentially.
Yeah.
Which I do wonder how many people have died in that exploding temple.
Yeah, but technically he's not Batman yet. Yeah, there are grey areas in this film. He basically he wants to bring it down because it isn't. The whole basis on which they're working is now wrong. The scene wisely focuses on him saving Ducard more than killing anyone else.
Ken
Watanabe spills his Guinness immediately.
They have a fight, but he kind of dies from falling debris, really.
He's like, I'm after falling down the stairs.
And then he saves Ducard to what would, which is quite heavy stuff. I mean, he's dangling by one arm. And I think, but he lifts them up thinking, fucking hell, that's impossible to do. He must do some working out to lift, like, God knows how heavy Liam Neeson is, but he's over 6 foot, I know that.
Yeah,
that's just his cock.
An awful lot of training. That's just his cock, yeah. That's probably why he didn't die. His dick was already touching the ground. Just thought about baseball while he gently lowered himself.
Okay.
Fair enough, if you say so.
Okay.
So I had to get a Liam Neeson dick joke in there.
Apparently, it's like a 2-litre bottle of Evian.
Oh God.
I assume they mean in size, not nutritional information.
Whatever you say.
Mineral.
Should take one every day.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. You should be seen chugging it at the gym.
Oh dear.
Oh, I'll be taking on
Sponsored by
orally.
Oh dear, at least we've stayed to the serious themes of the film. Yes.
Or
Okay.
descended into the dick jokes.
Yeah.
Check out Hollywood Babylon for more on Liam Neeson's massive cock.
He saves him. The friendly villager goes like, "Oh, I shall tell him who saved you," and he sort of kind of nods, thinking, well, I've done something good. He will learn from this.
And it was just a villager. What's the villager going to say? You were saved by the one with dark hair. Oh, right, brilliant.
Probably like the American guy. He's probably like the only Western face.
Fair enough, okay.
But yeah, I know. Let's face it, he's probably going to know
You
anyway.
were saved by the other Irish one.
that would have been awkward when he meets again. It's like, but I thought you were dead. Well,
Yeah.
you didn't save my life? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, maybe have a lesson then. Well, I'll leave you to it then.
That's all right, I've got a big dick. So he saves him, and the next thing we see, the private plane is on the tarmac waiting to take him home.
Yeah, and
Alfred's come to get him.
Alfred says he looks fashionable.
Yeah.
And he sort of talks about being Batman, which I think is like...
Being a symbol.
Yeah, a symbol, and he's like... And Batman's going, oh, okay then.
One bit I like is he was declared dead, so everything belongs to Alfred.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I'll let you borrow the rose if you want.
Yeah, so some really sort of like nice sort of dialogue when it comes to it. I think, what I really like is how the humour is used as well. I mean, it's quite serious, but the humour is still kind of...
But life has levity. I mean, unless you are deeply depressed on a given day, or in immediate fear of your life, life isn't a comedy, but we all laugh at something most days. And so, I that's the problem I have with certain films we'll get to in the future in other series, where I don't expect comedy, but there's literally no lightness, literally no levity, and this has it, just as Casino Royale had it.
And it works so much better as well when it is just like natural lightness in the dialogue, like just natural jokes people would say.
Well, I mean, if you were the home help, effectively, you're a bit more than that because you brought the kid up. But if you're now in a situation where you've been given everything that person owned and they came back, you'd bust their balls about it a bit, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you at least like sort of make it like an obtuse observational joke, wouldn't you?
Like, well, I guess it's all mine now then, anyway. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got the seeds of him wanting to. Bats aren't mentioned at this point. In fact, it's not mentioned till he's doing some sort of sketches at home, presumably on different ideas of what he might look like, and he sees a bat. Yeah,
but that's later on. So next scene is Crane recommending Zaz, I think it's pronounced, played by
Victor Zaz. He's the one with scars on him all over him.
Yeah.
Victor Zaz is a comic book character. I think he's got a scar on himself for everybody he kills or something like that.
And we see him later on, don't we?
And he's played by the lead singer of James.
Yeah.
So he is.
Randomly.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
That's who I'd cast if I want a dangerous killer.
He's also a big fan of the series, isn't he? He's like, right, I'm going to play that character. So.
Yeah. Quite possible.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know why. It was just like an odd choice, but there's no real. He doesn't have any dialogue.
No, he doesn't kind of.
So
he doesn't have like.
That's how I imagine Victor Zaz, and he is in the Arkham games and so on.
So So we get introduced basically Scarecrow. Crane is recommending him to, he's like, he's insane. He needs to be in Arkham under my jurisdiction, which is kind of like connection. He's basically a hitman for Marconi, and Rachel confronts him with like, how come you keep recommending Marconi's
Everyone's
folks?
being declared insane, just as I'm about to send them to prison.
Yeah, and he's like, he kind of brushes it off, and he kind of gives her like a light kind of like warning, like threat.
I think it's you. I think he says to her boss something like, "You want to check," or he either says to her about her boss, or to her boss about her.
Yeah,
you want to see what you're authorized to say.
Yeah,
or what allegations you're authorized to make. In other words, the threat being that you are impugning my professional.
I think he's sort of like, you need to keep a leash on her kind of
yeah.
thing.
He's creepy in this, but not mustache twirling villain.
He's considered to be Batman at one point. He auditioned for the role, which would have been interesting.
I have heard that. I can't see it, but you just never know. I mean, he's a character actor, and maybe he wouldn't have played it like this, would he?
No.
So boost him up. Maybe, who knows? Do you want to see my mask? You're wearing it. Oh
yeah. But yeah, he's really good. You could say he's really good casting in this. So then where we go from here? Yeah, and then Bruce finds that this is where he's doing he's sketching. We see like a picture of Gordon. So he's still got Gordon to get in touch with him, and he sees a bat in the corner. He follows it, and he's sort of like, he basically comes into the Batcave, what is to be the Batcave, and comes like surrounded by bats, which is kind of like when he kind of like rises, and he's engulfed in his bat's place since the first time since in real life, not in his hallucinate imagination.
But it's the conquering fear thing.
Yeah.
He's still frightened of bats. But he stands amongst them.
Yeah, and that could be like the moment where I think, the symbol is bats, kind of thing. And then next scene we sort of talk to Cranes in Falcone, and they talk about the plans. He hints of he's coming to Gotham. He's not going to be happy if you get your fucks off a little jail time, and then they in a manner of words they can order a hit on Rachel, essentially, and then Bruce. Next scene is Bruce going to Wayne Enterprises to see Rutger Hauer.
Yeah, just the last point on the previous scene just shows you how corrupt it is.
Yeah,
that the first reaction is buy her off, not this one.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, so that means pretty much every other one.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained in this scenario that it takes a very young DA to be able to have that sort of attitude that they won't be bribed. It's incredible. But yeah, we do see him go into Wayne Tower, don't we? And meet with Rutger. Rutger, yeah, who is basically chief of Wayne Enterprises in the absence of any of the family. I think the business has effectively been put into a trust and run by him.
And
he kind of heads up the trust, doesn't he?
And he's trying to make it public because obviously, I mean, would he get financial gain out of that by making it public, or is he just putting it public because?
I don't actually know.
I mean, I'm no business expert, but would he be?
Because it can be brought up by lots of different people, and I think he was kind of trying to seek some financial gain out of it. Whereas obviously at the end, Bruce, buys it through trusts and charitable foundations and what have you.
That's the
impression I get. I don't know.
Going public normally does mean an immense amount of shares. The people who they will own it at the present time, so there'll be a price per share. Yeah, they'll all get quite rich off it. And I'm not a business expert either, but that's the only real reason to do it. So yeah, in and of itself, it's not an evil thing to do, but it is,
especially when at this time all heirs to the business are dead as well. So
well, I think it's more that it's not really his company.
Yeah. And
now Bruce Wayne is coming back. That sort of thing should probably go on hold. But obviously, the persona Bruce is about to adopt is one of a bit of a clueless waster anyway.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is, it's not comic book level evil, but it is, it's maybe a little bit dodgy given Bruce is now back.
I like the persona of Bruce Wayne now, because the first shot of him, he's there teaching her how to play golf, the receptionist.
It was very Troy Tribbiani pretended to be a tennis coach in that episode. Come on, put your ass into it. Yeah.
But yeah,
he hasn't fully decided yet, but yeah, it's all charm, isn't it?
Yeah. He sort of said, I'm not looking to get involved. I'll be fully hamstering rewarded for my shares and just want a job really.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll conveniently send you to the tech."
He asks for is it applied sciences?
Yes, that's it.
So he obviously has enough knowledge of what his business does to know there's a division down there that tests things out. He's looking for a Q.
Yes.
Which, he did appear. I think I might have been from the 80s onwards. Lucius Fox does appear in certainly latter-day comic books. But I can't help but think this has got Nolan written all over it as a Bond fan.
Yeah, definitely.
He needs a Q.
Well, the scenes do play exactly like the Q scenes do. Like, even just in the sort of like how he's very Bondy, how he's sort of like, oh, so Q, what's this? And
little bit flippant with it.
Yeah. And Morgan Freeman just enjoys every time he gets like, oh, he gets to like pull out, oh, you want to get to play this gadget, eh? You know,
he has a good time in this film, doesn't he?
Well, I think in all of them, he does have a sort of sense of like, I just really enjoy my time doing this.
Well, even in the third one, he's like, oh, come on, have a look at some stuff.
For old time's sake.
I don't do that anymore. I don't care. Look at this.
Thank you. Where was it? Yeah, so
what's the first one? The first one is the isn't the first one basically the torso, the survival suit thing.
Yeah, basically, a suit. It's like it was meant to be sort of designed for soldiers who were like it's like bulletproof and is lightweight, not all this. So it's just basically get the foundations of the bat suit essentially, and the bat utility belt and things like that. Which is meant to be a lot more like mechanical and like sort of more practical sort of.
Yeah,
thinking.
But it wasn't worth. It costs about $300,000 a pop.
Yeah,
and soldiers aren't worth that. The dialogue of the film says
yeah.
That. But it's not the view of Do You Expect Us to Talk?
No.
And then I think the next one is the memory cloth. So you can make shapes of it. So you can walk around effectively with a cape on, not a cape on as in a large chicken.
Yeah.
I did wonder.
They can make shapes out of it, effectively.
Yeah.
I think that's cool, yeah, by passing a current through it. I think that's quite clever.
Can you imagine if you just handed him a cape on?
Here, I'll have this chicken. Thanks.
All right.
That's my dinner sorted.
Yeah. At the same time, him and Alfred are sort of ordering the bits for the cow.
Yeah. I like how it's sort of you have to order like loads just to
10,000 to avoid suspicion.
Yeah. Of course, not suspicious at all. Some random bloke in America orders
uniform.
But they order it through some cover company or something. I can't remember now, but they do that. So I love all that. The first lot are faulty, so they break.
Yeah.
It smashes it. So yeah, the problem with the graphite. I'm like, oh my
and
god.
he has to get out and see Gordon before all this stuff is ready, hasn't he?
Yeah. Where was he now? Yeah, we get a bit more of the Batcave, how it used to be like using the Civil War to transport freed slaves. So like a bit more of like legacy of the Wayne family.
Yeah. Every generation of the Waynes have been wonderful, wonderful human beings.
Yes. We also got
none of this. Well, that was your uncle. He used to buy slaves. He used to fuck them too. None of that. They were all great.
Well, he did. He didn't say actually what purpose though, wasn't he? So, like, I was in the Civil War. He used to transport freed slaves. He used to that could mean he used to capture them and make them up for him.
Okay.
And unfree him.
The whole point is the Waynes have always been on the side of the downtrodden and unfairly treated.
And then next scene we get introduced to Gordon again, to not Eckhart but basically Eckhart. In a way.
Flass.
Yeah.
Is this... Oh, yeah, they're in the... What, this is the scene in the car. Oh, no. Hang on.
It is. It's when it's like...
No, because he's in his bat outfit by now. We haven't had the first meeting with Gordon, have we?
Yeah, no, we haven't. This is before then.
Okay, all right. Well, he does go out dressed all in black one night. Sort of think, for those of you who haven't seen it, think sort of first edition of the TV show Daredevil uniform, the black one. Goes out a bit like that. Uses the voice, though. No, we are too.
Yeah.
But I think that's purely to impress upon Gordon that this vigilante that is about to become active trusts him and only him.
You've got a friend indeed.
Well, he sort of tells him sort of like, you can trust Rachel as well. So he's like, there's a kind of wait for my signal. You'll know what it is. Yeah. And then what I kind of like about it is when he chases him out of it, it's kind of like the learning curve. So he figures out like I probably need like some sort of cape kind of.
That's where that comes from because he goes flying straight inside of a building, not flying but flinging himself.
It's just like kind of like a learning curve. I'm just putting stuff together. I'm not kind of got it figured out yet. So I
But the
kind of
first
like
time
that.
he has, we did go forward almost by accident there, but I think it's a fair place to end up. First time he sort of goes out in the Bat uniform per se, that is when he suspends Flash, is it? Or does he see Rachel first?
What, when he's in the back? No, yeah.
When he's in the full Bat outfit, it's the first time we see that when he interrogates Flash.
No,
or is it
the
he
first
hands
time,
just to Rachel?
his first time in the Bat Alpha is when he takes on Falcone, and then
Down at the docks.
yeah,
That's brilliant.
that is his
Oh,
first.
of course, because he needs to have something to interrogate Flash about, doesn't he?
Yes.
It's about what happens down there.
Yeah, so he goes to the docks, and then he sort of saves Rachel, and then gives her like the picture, the information that he's got from the dock, and say use that to put him away, and then he sort of he meets Gordon, and then he tells him about Flask, and then he grabs Flask and intervene. Yeah, so.
Okay. But yeah,
We just cut like another 20 minutes of the film there.
Okay, where do you want to go from here, Chris? Because I planned out. Where's it going from here?
So
where do we want to go from there?
Yeah, so so basically he jumps from the so he figures out he needs a cow, so he gets some memory cloth from thing. He sees the tumbler from that scene when he's talking about the memory cloth, and he's like, "Oh,
you wouldn't be interested in that."
And it's apparently designed as a bridging vehicle. I'm not quite sure what that means, but basically he jumps over. It's meant to be designed to jump over like sort of short distances, like heavy, like military-esque vehicles. Essentially, like a fast tank that can like jump over.
Yeah. Again, it was designed by sort of, in very broad outline, it was designed by Nolan.
Yeah.
He was sat there with clay just forming that, and then obviously it got given to an art department. I always remember after this film, they were saying, in the next film, they'll probably get closer to the Batmobile we know. I think people genuinely thought this series was going to get more stylized and head towards a Bat universe we recognize, but obviously this is the Batmobile, and that's it. Yeah.
I think at the time there was more sort of ideas that the series could grow on then, and I was like, I'm not sure whether it would continue in that same. It might have been a bit of a one-off almost. I mean, that's how Nolan approached it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, where we go? Basically, we have a scene with not Eckhart. What's his name? Flash talking with Marconi, and he's sort of like he's talking about sort of ordering him.
Falcone, of course.
Yeah, Falcone.
Falcone invent the phone or something. I was like, anyway, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. I think Marconi's Dark Knight, isn't he? It's Eric Roberts in that. Marconi.
Marconi, not Marconi.
Yeah, it's sort of they're having a basic conversation. He said like sort of be careful of like you sort of basically killing Rachel because that might bring on too much heat. You might sort of go, okay, don't steady on. And then and Falcone said like, don't you underestimate the people of Gotham. You know, like kind of I know how to do things. And then we get the dialogue of Alfred saying, "Why Bat, sir?" Which he basically sums up like, "Well, it's my fear.
Alfred.
Yeah, it's my my enemies will share my dread." So it's like spelling it out basically. And then you get to the docks, and he's
this is his sort of big debut, isn't it?
Yeah,
effectively.
They're
effective scene.
They're transferring powder through cuddly toys. It looks like. Some sort of
drugs are coming in now. I think before this, Rachel's boss goes missing, or it's just after this because they realise that this transporter was supposed to bring in, let's say, 200 of these things, and when it turned up, there was 201. And it is these drugs are coming in, and we find out through dialogue later that it's basically being split in half. Half of it is going out to drug dealers, and half of it's going somewhere else, and it is to do with the toxin that's in it, we later find out, and going into the water supply. But at this point, Flash is making sure it comes in safely, in that he's police, so there's a police presence there to make sure it gets in, because he's corrupt police. And Batman appears.
Yeah, and so starts taking out all the guys, and I
love it.
In the manner of how you think Batman should work. In terms of like, he's scaring the living shit out of everyone. He's like creeping in. He
scares them, gets the lights off, and then starts striking from unpredictable angles and positions, and you never get a proper look at him. Yeah,
and what I really like is that there's that bit where the two. Well, there's actually two bits of the guy going like, "Where are you?" and he just appears from behind him upside down. Yeah, and then there's
don't know. Oh no, sorry.
but then there's
everywhere.
Then there's a bit where there's like two of them. One of them's like sort of looking up for ages, like in shock, and like the guy's like, what? Looks up, and you see what they're looking at, and it's like he's literally dangling like a bat, and he just drops down. That's a really impressive shot. And then not Eckhart legs it, Flask legs it.
This film is called Not Eckhart.
Tells Falcone to get out of here. But he unwisely doesn't. He kind of like sort of like he kind of has to look see what's going on. Sees Batman beating the shit out of everyone. Goes like, okay, I'm getting out of here. Goes in his car, finds out his driver is knocked out. Gets out a shotgun, and then Batman just grabs him through the top of the car and says, "I am Batman," and headbutts him. And there you are.
Yeah. Okay. That's the origin of the bat symbol as well. He ties them up on it.
Yeah, which is essentially
that's a nice callback, isn't
the
it?
symbol, yeah. And it's sort of that nice sort of like unexpectedness, like, oh, we'll never nail him to the scene. Like, well, I won't be so sure about that.
Extraordinarily efficient storytelling, though.
Yeah.
And shadowing
definitely.
of all the things we need to know. So Batman is now out in the world. No one knows quite who he is. Falcone's behind bars. And also, you know that Gordon's going to be a supporter, not only because he's met him, but after this, you've got Loeb saying we can't have vigilantes and all the rest of it. And Gordon's saying, well, he's just brought in the biggest crime boss we have.
Yeah. And so there's an element of like of possibly a frustrated Gordon going like, oh well, maybe we do need to work with this guy. And yeah, where would you go from there? We get in the morning that after where like Bruce wakes up, and I like how he just like jumps straight out of bed and just does push-ups.
Yeah.
Like you really get to see his physique. Now, there was a lot of reports of like Christian Bale and how he gained weight from this because he just came off the Machinist where he was told gain as much as you could. And gained as much as he could
without being sort of crazy. So it went from kind of being like really stick thin to
he did the Machinist previously, where he was about 120 pounds. If you ever just look it up. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I haven't seen
it's
the
another
film.
Good film as well.
I haven't seen it actually, but if you type in Christian Bale the Machinist into a Google image search, you'll see how
skinny
painfully emaciated he was. The sort of common or garden size for him is how he was in The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises. He's a touch bigger in this film because
kind of be the average of it.
He bulked up, and then of course had to lose it very quickly because he'd gone a bit far.
Yeah. But people had some comments were saying like, "Fucking hell, we're doing Batman or Fat Man." So he's like, so that's how far he went. He was like,
there are a couple of shots on the special features where you see him at his biggest, and it's like, he's too big.
Yeah,
it's like Batfleck.
But he doesn't. He doesn't look fat though. He just looks more bulky. I mean, I like the idea that he is more bulky. He looks more like he can actually beat the shit out on people more. You know, he looks more straight. Whereas in the other films, he just looks just a little bit too thin for me.
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
But it's certainly impressive anyway. So I like how he's just constantly there doing push-up, and Alfred sort of hints at him, it's like, well, maybe you need to keep up the Bruce Wayne persona a bit more, you know, in terms of like, if you just like spend your entire days just doing nothing, people are going to start questioning what it is you do. And it's going to like lead to like, people might figure out that you're Batman. So maybe if you need to sort of, you know, as in his words, if you start pretending to have a bit of fun, maybe you might have some by accident.
Yeah.
So we get straight from that to him basically walking into the restaurant, acting like the biggest bellend in the world.
Immediately, two beautiful women with him who dive straight into a water feature.
Yeah.
His excuse, they're European.
The maitre d' I've actually seen in the. I saw him down here years ago in the Rocky Horror Picture Show as Frankenfurter on stage.
All right.
I hate Rocky Horror, by the way, but
well,
no, I went to see it. No, it's shit. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, right, yeah. So I recognised him from that. This scene is pretty efficient, and I like this take on Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, again, it's just like the kind of in the dual identity, isn't it? It's like kind of. It's
better than sat in a chair doing Rodin's The Thinker
until
a light comes through your window.
Well, it is well, definitely, but it's kind of like what Christopher Reeve did in Superman. It's like he's portraying a different character in his everyday life. So when some people look at him as Clark Kent, they're thinking, well, Clark's a geek. Come on, he's not Superman. Look at him. So same with this. He's basically playing an obnoxious bellend. So when people think it might be Bruce Wayne, you go like, come on, as if it's fucking Bruce Wayne. Yeah.
And you do see that in the comic books where like the police will go to see Bruce Wayne about something.
Yeah.
And they'll see him at Wayne Manor, and he'll be in a robe with two women and like bottles of champagne. And like as soon as the police leave, he tells them to like skedaddle because they're not, he's not really partying with them, and he's not really drinking either. We see it next week. He has a party for Harvey Dent. Walks out on his balcony with like a glass of champagne and just throws it straight off. He doesn't drink. So I like that take on Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, and then he buys the hotel or slash restaurant.
Or he says he's going to anyway.
Yeah.
It's just showmanship, isn't it? and then he sees Rachel, and the way Bale's face changes instantly as well.
Yeah, it's like, oh shit. I mean, it's also like they've not met since he's come back as well, which is a little bit like, oh, you think he would have dropped by and said hi, but no, there's
Rachel.
But there's probably a sense of, because he saw that she's with her boss. You notice how Rachel likes dating her bosses. You notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
dirty.
So he probably might be a sense of like, I'll just let her be for now because I'm doing my thing now. But he gets a sense of like, oh crap. Almost like ashamed. Yeah, almost like he feels.
That's where she comes up with the line.
Yeah.
It's not who you are underneath, but what you do that defines you.
Yeah. And where he's trying to explain like, no, there is more. Like in a way, he wants to sort of say, no, well, this is not me. It's all fun because I'm fighting crime, really.
Well, it's the fact that what I like about the way it's written, and I say I've got my issues with the dialogue in this film, but what I really like about it is that he hasn't had time to figure out what to say.
Yeah.
There's no speech making. There's no, well, Rachel, no, this isn't me. What's happening is, I mean, he's not going to tell he's Batman, obviously, but there's nothing prepared. He's caught on the hop.
Yeah.
So he kind of half mumbles something about there's more to me or something. And it's confused and slightly shit. And it's because he's been caught.
Yeah.
The last person he'd want, it's like your mum catching you, Yeah. It's the last person he would have wanted to see him playing up like that.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
that's for the benefit of Gotham, not her.
Definitely. It's like, it's the last person because it's, he wants her to understand that, he's learned, he's advanced, he hasn't come back from the last time they met, and now he's just a rich bellend.
Well, the last time she saw him, he was dropping out of college and talking about killing somebody.
Yeah.
And she slapped him. And she saw him walking off to go and threaten a fucking mob boss.
Yeah. And
the next time she sees him, he's come home, inherited his family wealth, and just started pissing around in public with two women.
Yeah. So he would be like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I really like that scene. And you get that sort of, it's not what you do, it surprises you. We get informed about that machine that Wayne Enterprises lost. That kind of like, that kind of dissolve.
It's what's it called? It evaporates water.
And we get Falcone in jail with Crane, and that's what sends him mad when he's sort of like, he basically Falcone threatens to talk basically because he wants a bigger slice of the pie. Because
I don't care who you're working for, but no one's going to get to me in my town.
Yeah.
And he gets to him because he sat right there in prison with him.
Yeah.
So that's a 52-year-old, as we're later told by Rachel, that's a 52-year-old with no history of mental illness whatsoever.
Yeah.
And he's another one that's gone mad.
Crazy.
Yeah, which is half the reason Rachel now wants to go to Arkham and get he takes him to Arkham, or sends him to Arkham because he's gone mad. And then Rachel obviously wants to get an independent look at him.
So we also get the first actual look at the Scarecrow.
He's put
terrifying.
a bag on his head.
Basically, yeah.
Sorry about the band. Didn't the band be bad?
Or was it Gummidge?
Right.
Cup of tea and a slice of cake.
I must say I did find Was Gummidge quite scary when I was young. No, can I just make a point about Cillian Murphy here? I do think Scarecrow is terrifying. I think am I right in thinking this is the first time we've seen him within this Batman series?
Yeah.
I like the way that his character is presented. He's very kind of... There's a lot of sharp angles with him. You immediately, when you see Dr. Crane, you know there's something not quite right about him. He's all kind of angles and sharp edges and just looks very sinister generally. I think Cillian Murphy's performance was really spot on.
Yeah, he does a lot with not seemingly doing much at all. Because he's very blank.
Very understated.
Yeah.
And very kind of minimal movements. Like he's I mean his name's Crane, so you kind of, you know, you've got that kind of undercurrent, you might bird-like kind of movements, but that doesn't really happen here. He's stock still all the time. Just maybe a slight raise of the eyebrow or, you know, pursing of the lips, or very, very small movements are done really well, really effectively. I think Cillian Murphy is probably my favourite performer in this film, I think.
Couldn't really disagree.
Oh.
No, I think
Fair
it's
enough.
terrific.
Yeah, I think like the rest of the cast, it's all just really, really well put together.
Everyone's on the top.
Yeah.
And, you know,
game.
the other thing is he's got to sell you he's a professional and that he's a villain, and I just love that he manages to skirt that line so well. He testifies in court. He's got to be plausible, but at the same time, when Rachel has to go to Arkham late at night to say, look, no, I want my own person in from Gotham General to provide a diagnosis on this guy, you actually feel the fear of, like, shit, that's a scary bloke to be hanging around with at that time of night.
Exactly. Literally, when they go down the lift, I thought, oh, bloody hell, you know. I mean, I've seen this. You've seen this film. You know what's going to happen. You think, is she going to come out alive? And obviously, there's a scene later on in the third film, which I remember seeing it, and we'll get there, and we were just like, oh, the whole audience gasped audibly. And we'll get there.
Okay.
But that scene where they sort of go down into the lift before he kind of shows her the whole operation, you just think, oh, bloody hell, you know.
Yeah. And we're told basically that it's taking place at Arkham, that they're pouring this drug straight into the water, and it's so that microwave emitter can evaporate it and sort of weaponize it into the air at some point. But the water lines, we later find out, or the water pipes run right under the train, right the way up to Wayne Tower. So that we're getting the bits of the plots, but at this point, the key is that Rachel is gassed. We forgot to mention Batman has already been gassed.
Yeah, he manages to kind of, he struggles a little bit, doesn't he? He doesn't cope with it so well.
Well, that's a bit later on because we get to after this bit, after he sends a man in jail. We get that scene between Gordon and Batman where he kind of like, after he's made an impact, he's like, oh, well, I think you're someone I think you're someone who's trying to help. And then he disappears on him, and then you get straight to that scene where he grabs Loeb, but yeah,
Loeb is the commissioner at this point.
Loeb, sorry, the not Eckhart. I keep forgetting his name. Flask, yeah.
Which is the one thing I'd enjoyed this film all the way through, and I really thought we were watching like the first really great Batman film. But if there was one moment where my appreciation for what they're doing really stepped up, it was this one, because Flash is firstly, Ray doesn't quite look like that in real life. It's evidently a set and a rain machine, but it looks kind of dramatic because it's really heavy. He's just using his influence and bullying people to just take food off a street vendor, and then Batman just basically hooks him and gets him up in the air, and it's the swear to me, which is never done as well in the rest of the series. There are scenes like it later on, particularly when he's sort of doing his voice at its worst. It was just this. He was just this absolute, like, terrifying elemental figure. We get a close into him. He's probably putting it on for the sake of causing fear, but he's shaking, like, swear to me. The voice is kind of scary without being comedic, you know. And I just thought this, and then he drops him, and Flash would have just gone, you know, ends up on the floor lying in the rain, and he would have just thought, what on earth just happened? He's trying to find out where the drugs were going. And Flash tells him what he knows, which isn't a lot. other than it was being sort of split and half was going to the dealers and half was going somewhere else. And he mentions Ra's al Ghul, I think, and he says Ra's al Ghul is dead. And then he said something about the Narrows, and he said, but cops don't go in there. And he says, but do I look like a cop?
Yeah.
And so the point is, it's going into Arkham to be poured into the water supply.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is probably the one scene where I thought, yeah, okay, yeah, you've got this. This is how Batman would operate. Like, he would just be hanging on top of, like, buildings and just grabbing people and just, like, be this, like, monstrous scaremongering figure that people would absolutely fear at night. You know, criminals would be like, shit. You know, he can kind of get exactly where he's coming from. Even, like, the stuff that would be, like, the thing we would mock now of the Nolan verse. With the whole,
it works in this film.
Yeah, definitely. And in context to this, in terms of, like, you know, saying swear to me, you know, it does, like, oh my god, who the fuck is this guy? You know, coming from nowhere. It completely.
And you haven't seen him coming, and he hasn't flown in at you. He's grabbed you. You're walking along the street, and suddenly your leg is hooked, and you're going up 10, 15 stories.
Yeah, it's terrifying, but
it's brilliant.
And then it goes straight to the Narrow. Basically where he's kind of like investigating. Well, Crane's kind of like trying to like cover up the evidence, and then Batman comes and takes out a couple of his goons, but he gets gassed and then set on fire, and we see like a real vulnerability to him. It's like basically like, Alfred, come and help me, and he gets taken in the rolls in the back of the wall, and
Alfred has got tears in his eyes.
I didn't notice that bit.
Yeah, he has. He's got tears in his eyes watching the state Bruce is in the back of the car.
Oh. I don't know. Never picked up on that bit. And then then next we know he's been. Doesn't Rachel's boss get killed? Let me double check.
Yes, he does. He does. He goes down to the dock because it is after the dock scene.
Yeah.
Obviously, they grasp that there's an extra container come in.
Now, I do have an issue with this again. I know it's like way it's edited, but again, it kind of like almost like you almost miss it. You almost miss like, hang on, he's just been killed.
Yeah.
The way it's cut together. So I do have issue with that, how it's done.
I almost wish they hadn't shown it, because later on, Rachel refers to, my boss has been missing for 2 days. She pops around to see Bruce on his birthday, which is the date
he wakes up, basically.
Yeah. And she says he's been missing for 2 days, which probably means we should be searching the bottom of the ocean bed in this town. And I just think, actually, that could have just been left as a, Christ, even he succumbed.
Yeah.
For the weight they gave it, I don't actually think we needed to see it.
No, I know. I mean,
it's not that big a deal.
To be honest, I almost like the first time I watched it, I completely didn't even notice it was there, because it happens that quick. You know, the way it's what's good. But yeah, he wakes up 2 days later. It's like kind of like a surprise. Alfred,
Lucius is sat there.
Yeah, Lucius sat there. They've called in. He's kind of figured out an antidote, and he sort of helped him recover from it. Lucius sort of tells him about it, and as if to say, like, I just wanted you to know how hard it was. So he asked him, can you make some more antidote?
It's like, well, I'll bring what we have.
Yeah, and then sort of, of course, it's his birthday part, but Bruce knows he has to go in to sort out. There's something big happening. Alfred is concerned, like, no, you need to sort of like honor your father's legacy. It's your father's guests, you know. And he says, like, no, it's fine, you know. He's not concerned about keeping up his legacy.
That's after Rachel, because he has a go at him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
After that, he goes. He knows Rachel has mentioned going there, I think. I can't remember how he knows he's there, but Batman comes in mainly because I think the police have been called.
Yeah.
So Batman comes in, gasses Crane with his own sort of toxin, becomes this kind of oil spewing beast figure, Crane, And then he's got to get Rachel out of there because we've alluded to this a while back. Rachel's been gassed with a very concentrated amount.
Yeah, so she's like she's very limited time. So basically, from there, which again, there's scenes where he passes on information to Gordon, but the whole element of like using the bats, I think is great.
It's just a certain thing he's put in his shoe that's got a certain frequency on it, so it would attract bats. That's out of a book as well, and I can't remember which one that is. I don't know if that is year one. That is in one of the books where the bats sort of come in and shield him as he drops down like that. Fantastic.
And then there's a big car chase with the tumbler, which is like almost like a race against time to protect Rachel, which is kind of one of the things where we go Rachel all the time.
Rachel. That was him putting on his romantic voice.
Yeah, obviously. And I like how he dashes out the tumbler, glides to the cure, and glides back just to kind of save time. And then he sort of like tells Alfred about Rachel, and he's sort of like there to sort of tells I need to get rid of everyone. And it's like Alfred's getting pissed off. It's like
there's a vial for mass production and a vial to inoculate Rachel. And he goes to take her home, and of course it looks like an old man, like with a young. It looks dodgy, doesn't it?
Yeah. But it does play that gag, doesn't it? And then
Becca, what do you make of all this?
I think it's a really good kind of sequence of events. Really, I do like, as you say, it's very much kind of like linear storytelling. No, I think I'm really happy with everything up to this point. Really, apart from like the choppy editing style. But no, really enjoy it.
Yeah, you just have like basically two major sequences like sort of just put together. So it's like you've had all the setup in the world, for initiating the character of Batman. Now you're having like it proper full on, and it's like almost like exactly what fans want. At least for how I interpret what I think probably fans would initially want from Batman and how he should be portrayed.
It's how he would operate, really, isn't it? You've kind of got the setup and you've got the payoff as well. I mean, that happens all the way through the film, but I think this is now we come to kind of see how Batman would really operate in the real world, having had the setbacks that he has had.
Yeah, and I love this scene where he's in where he's now back at being like host of the party now, and he's like he's kind of like made it clear that he wants everyone to like go so he can go back to being Batman because he feels like there's more pressing issues.
That's not straight away though, because he goes in and Alfred gives him a hard time because Alfred is all about his family name.
Yeah.
And, if Bruce won't protect it, then Alfred will.
Yeah.
It's on the news what he did. And
he's been flippant about it, isn't he? He's like,
a damn good television. But he is getting ready to go into his party, and you've got no reason to believe he's going to misbehave in any way. Yeah. We've had the name Ra's al Ghul mentioned a couple of times, and then he is introduced to Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah. Well, we have like Earl sort of he asks Earl about my company, how's it in terms of going public, and it's like, what's been bought? There's a number of he kind of like fobs him off like an idiot, as if to say, don't worry about it, Bruce. Kind of condescends, and he's kind of like you can kind of read that, and go, okay, prick.
he's also fired. Lucius because. Lucius, he asks Lucius what a such and such ME is that's gone missing, and it's the microwave emitter that's gone missing. It's been stolen off that boat basically.
Yeah.
And when he says, "Why did you lose one?" he says, "I'm merging you with archive. I'm merging this department with archives, and I'm firing you. Didn't you get the memo?"
Yeah.
So we're now
at
the
we get
party.
that later on when the roles are reversed.
Yeah, Lucius has been fired. They're now at this party. He's condescending to Bruce. I think we can. He's not a nice man. Whether he's evil is a different matter, but he's not a nice man, and he's not the right person to be running Wayne Enterprises.
No. Which kind of leads me to think he might be out of it. He might be in it for some gain of his own personal.
Yeah, Bruce is introduced to somebody who is supposed to be Ra's al Ghul, but it's not. It's one of Ra's al Ghul's henchmen. So, and then we notice Ducard, who is Ra's al Ghul, is there, and he's surrounded by a bunch of his heavies, his ninja guys.
It's like, isn't Ra's al Ghul supernatural?
He's everywhere.
Yeah, and I do love this reveal. I do love the twist. And I know, even though a lot of people will be like, "Oh yeah, but Chris, it's completely stonking obvious from the get go," but was
it at the time? I'm trying to remember if I knew.
I was surprised, but it was. but I'll be honest, it wasn't like exactly something I was actually actively thinking about. I was just kind of like watching the movie for what it was. So it's like, oh yeah, of course we're going to get back to Ra's al Ghul. Oh yeah, of course that makes sense. But what makes this twist work, even if you know on repeated viewings, or if you see it coming from the beginning, what makes it work in comparison to something like Star Trek Into Darkness is, whereas in Star Trek Into Darkness,
Not written by imbeciles.
well, that, but also it's like, my name is Khan, and then what's Kirk's reaction to that? Right? Who are you?
Nothing really.
What is key is, it is a revelation to our main antagonist. It's like, so even if we know what it is, or we figure it out, or if we've known from past viewing, it still works. It's still satisfying because it's a revelation to the character we're following. So to Bruce Wayne, it's like, oh crap, you're.
Well, that's got meaning. Yeah,
Yes,
that's got meaning.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I'll extend it to Spectre as well. It's like, what does the fact that he's like
I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld. That's not a name I've ever heard before.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I think with this, it's not only that we don't get time to dwell on it, but there was a hint, effectively, when he saved Ducard's life, that he was told all the way through, and we're using the term Ducard and Ra's al Ghul interchangeably now. He was told criminals rely on the indulgence of others. And he went soft and saved him, if you like. Yeah. He saved Ducard. If he'd let him die, he wouldn't be in this situation. It's the same thing you get over generations in the comic books about how many lives would he have saved if he just killed the Joker. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But so there's a lot to think about. And Bruce has basically put himself into this position. And it gives it weight, it gives it themes, it gives it things to think about, rather than just, I'm insert name of mustache twirling villain.
Mustache twirling villain.
It's like, if he had not gone for the entire film without even knowing who Ra's al Ghul is, let's just say, like, it's the first.
It made a difference.
The first time, like, it's even mentioned in the film, then it would be a terrible twist.
Or there'd been no Ra's al Ghul at the training camp. It had been Ducard's training camp. Ducard runs the League of Shadows, and then suddenly he appears and go, "My name is Ra's al Ghul."
Yeah, I know.
Which not
it's a bit like Kevin Spacey in Usual Suspects, isn't it? It's it's more like the idea, the name, rather than an actual person.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like on the flip side as well, it's like you don't, Christian Bale never goes, "I'm Batman." He's kind of he's called like the Bat or the Batman.
The Batman. Yeah.
He doesn't go.
I'm Batman.
No, nobody ever does, Becca.
No, I know. Well, no, I'm just saying. For example, I get what you're saying, but like at the same time, it doesn't really happen. But yeah, would it make a difference if Ra's al Ghul didn't say, "Oh hi, I'm,"
The whole thing about this film is that they pick their villains in the Nolan era after they've decided what they want Batman / Bruce Wayne to go through, rather than saying, right, well, it's film one, who's the biggest? Joker. This is about conquering fear, so they want him trained by the League of Shadows, so that's suddenly Ra's al Ghul. I think it's called something else in the comic than the League of Shadows. I've forgotten now. But anyway, I think it might be called League of Assassins or something like that, but that would be too on the nose for the film. But anyway, and then no one needs explaining why the Scarecrow is there in a film with these themes. And so many of the films we've seen in recent years have played on name recognitions from either previous iterations or previous films in a franchise. And when they say, "I am Khan" or "I am whoever, Blofeld," they're not talking to the character in the context of the film. They're talking to the audience in the context of name recognition. And that's got just nothing to do with anything, really.
It's just meaningless, I mean,
yes.
And so, yeah, it is something, it has to work within the story, and it's like, well, what is the point of this? It's just it is basically just pure fan service for no
and it's
point.
Not, partly because Ra's al Ghul is a popular character in Batman lore, but in terms of the general public, he's not that big.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have that, "Oh my God, he's Ra's al Ghul," if you didn't have it set up by the story.
Yeah. You need it to make sense. I think fan service is fine, but you need to use it wisely. You need to make it work. Use it to the story's advantage, not just like go, say there you are, fans.
It's an interesting take on the whole idea of immortality as well, because you've got the Lazarus Pit in the books and stuff like that, and Ra's al Ghul is hundreds of years old and so on. Well, it's not quite that here, but obviously it's more about a legend than a person, as Becca alluded to.
See, I first more saw when I first saw this. I first more saw it as like he's now adopted the moniker of Ra's al Ghul. So previously it was the guy Ken Watanabe,
Ken Watanabe.
and now he's dead. He is now the new Raz. But I think
it's like a moniker that gets passed down.
I think
it
now
might well be that there's always a front there.
Yeah, but I think now, I don't know. Maybe you disagree, but maybe now I think it was all he was.
I genuinely, Chris, and I have problems with it in The Dark Knight Rises because they kind of tip their hat to different types of immortality, and never really go any further with it. I think the bottom line is I don't really care, and I don't mean I don't care about the story, but I don't really actually care whether he was still around at the same age 50 years before, which actually gets answered in the third one. But it doesn't matter. The fact is, he either is or always was the brains behind this league.
Yeah.
And instead of just being this wise Yoda figure, he is there with their attitude of how you fight crime. It's a bit like, if you look at the Assassin's Creed games, they're very Knights Templar. They're very about sort of control.
Yes.
Yeah, so then we go into the... Oh, and he talks about a cleansing fire earlier in the film as well. They do literally burn down the house.
Yeah, and it's like, again, it's like, as he even literally says, he says, like, I've burnt down your house and left you for dead. Consider us even.
Consider us even.
You burn me.
I know you want to help.
I don't know.
Well, you know, Christian Bale is Welsh, so...
we can't keep saying that for the simple reason that I can't get any more Welsh.
But now, because Christian Bale, you've got a legit reason to do it in a Welsh accent.
I love the fact that it's my piss take of Brosnan who's not
Who's Irish. you wouldn't have to.
It could have got a little bit nasty.
It's a dusty there from Tim.
sort of broad lilies.
Do you want to know why? Yeah. So. So anyway,
but I do like, obviously it was after the fire, and there's a scene where like the plank kind of falls on him, and it's basically a homage to you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Basically, all those, what does he say? All those push-ups, and you can't even lift the bloody log.
Yeah. I mean, I think
that's a great.
We have missed the good bit where he does get rid of everyone by acting like a huge dick as well. I liked how they handled it.
Yeah,
for
no,
his
he
character.
was ready to do the right thing at this party till he saw Ra's al Ghul, and he says to him, "You, these people haven't done anything wrong."
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome to explain it to them.
Yeah.
So he immediately slips into drunk mode and accuses them of being a bunch of freeloaders and tells them to get out.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, and also adds to later on with like drunk billionaire burns down.
Yeah.
Like the next day, but yeah. And then he's like kind of amusing, but pointless. The city hasn't got long to live. And then so Alfred saves Bruce. The Wayne Manor burns to the ground.
And they get down to effectively what is the Batcave in the nick of time because fire's almost following them down. And
this is the point where everything's all lost. When it comes to the story, everything's all like gone to shit.
Yeah, I'm assuming Alfred just heads off to the nearest Premier Inn because he's not with him for the rest of the film, is he?
No, where does he go? What does he do?
Checks into a hotel. But apologies about the smoky smell on me. I've just been at a party.
I've just emerged from Wayne Manor.
Yeah.
Is Alfred not in the rest of the film now?
Well, he's in the last scene.
I was going to say.
He's very much towards the end, do you?
I was going to say, well, you don't expect...
But it's not like Alfred in the 66 film. He doesn't put like a domino mask on with some glasses over the top.
Starts driving around with Robin. Yeah. And then we have the... obviously the repeat of why do we fall? You know, and he sort of, and why, and he never lost faith in me, never. Which never. which does again, it does have an emotional reaction to me.
It's cool.
Yeah, it does. You know, it does kind of hit you in the right place, and you think.
I mean, if you gave me a blank page and said cast a Batman film, I don't think I'd have even thought of Michael Caine.
Yeah,
and I still don't know that he'd be my first choice, but in context of this film, I think he's absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's probably he has his moments in the first film which I think are really strong, particularly as well. But yeah, he just adds. He almost is like the heart and soul of Wayne in this. So he kind of keeps him on a level. But yeah, he's.
There
great.
has to be someone who loves Batman, or Bruce Wayne rather, unreservedly, because the way this film has to shape itself, there's no real love interest. I mean, I know there's Rachel, but Rachel's disappointed with him. So because of the way he behaves in the build-up to becoming Batman. So if there wasn't Alfred behaving this way, who would there be to root for Bruce? You know? Yeah,
definitely. But that's what he's there for, isn't it? And I think that they've done it really, really well. So yeah, it strikes like it's a wide fall, and it's like, you know, it's that core value that he's had from childhood, and then he gets back in it. He sort of goes to the Narrows and
goes to the Narrows, yeah, and because there's basically about to be panic.
Yeah. And then I really love this sequence, how we've envisioned like these really kind of like horror scenes. You know, how like when Batman's gliding over everyone.
You can just see fiery eyes and mouth, I think.
And like this big shadow of a bat kind of thing. It's like really effective. It's kind of like really inventive.
I thought this was going to be the act you had a problem with, Chris.
Really?
Because a lot of people have a problem with the third act of this film. They say, oh no, it takes all its wonderful themes and then just goes not very good action for the last half an hour. I've never completely agreed.
No, I mean,
I thought this was where you would say, no, it's losing me here because it's not very well done.
No, it still works fine. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong here that can't be said for the rest of the film. I mean, my only problem with the film is kind of what Becca alluded to, returns to the editing, but I kind of understand reasons for that. But it's still a little bit, okay, just let some scenes breathe. Like, let me kind of understand and let me emotionally engage with some of it. And then, And the other times it's just kind of like just the fighting action of the action. Apart from that, I can't really fault this film, you know, really. I mean, it's still in tone with keeping with the fear, and I like...
Those that don't like the film slag off the last half an hour. There's only, I think, one line I've got a problem with. And even then, I actually quite like the way it's delivered. But if you showed me a script to this film, Jim Gordon going, I gotta get me one of those, would be, oh, fucking hell. The IQ of this film has just dropped 50 points.
It's all in the delivery, though, isn't it? I mean, it's like, you know, when he's first introduced to the Tumblr, he goes, did they come in black? And it's just like, oh my god, really? But it's the whole delivery of it and the way they pull it off. You can always forgive it at silliness.
But it does seem like the last half hour was written by somebody else as a result.
There is a bit of a split there, I must admit.
I mean, I don't really agree particularly. I think it's just because it's just like, now you have a set piece. You've got a huge set piece now. So now you have to kind of wrap up the film, and obviously you need a set piece. The film's done all the hard work in terms of the plot. Now you just need, now we just need to finish things off. So and even within that, you have these really interesting visuals with all the horror aesthetic, with the object of fear, and you have a good payoff with Ra's al Ghul, Liam Neeson.
And the other thing
despite that, I don't like the fighting in it, but like how it's shot. But I do like the payoff. I do like sort of his involvement, you know, of the...
Funnily enough, you can see, like I said earlier, you can see the fighting a lot clearer in the next two films, and I hate it. I don't like it as much. I think it works here, but then I'm not the action aficionado. The film is doing narratively what it needs to, and the action, the way it's editing's feeding into that. Whereas an action fan would look at it and go, I can't fucking see what's going on. This isn't working for me. Whereas I'm looking at it and going, yeah, that's exactly how Batman would come across.
I mean, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think had the Batman scenes played more like the scene at the dock, I would be absolutely agreeing with you. But I watched the scenes, and I think they do play more as you're like Batman is fighting someone. So when a scene is set up like that, I would like to actually see.
They know Batman's there. He's not striking from nowhere. I get your point.
Well, you actually know what? It's not necessarily. I just want to see the actual kicks and punches, but I would like to know what's happening. And it just seems a little bit like what's going on. I've got no navigation. I've got no what's the word? I've got no.
You haven't got your bearings on it at all.
Yeah,
I get that, but yeah, I think the difference is I just don't care generally.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But it's very what am I trying to say? I mean, the clue is in the name, obviously, the Narrows, but the very fact that area of the city is so tightly packed makes the mayhem that's going on just seem that much worse and much more anarchic.
I mean, you actually got one scene where someone's actually biting someone's head. It's very brief, but it's like, fucking hell. It's quite grim.
It's quite grim, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, you got all that. You got Gordon in the Batmobile, which is probably the cheesiest bit for me. Where you just...
Yeah, when he does shoot the pillar out the way and it's yes!
It's just...
I like it.
He's unfamiliar with, and he does it with great gusto.
My heart loves it, and my head hates my fucking heart for loving it.
I must say I did enjoy the scene as well. It's really silly, but it's enjoyable. You just have to go with it, don't you?
Well, I think in terms of that, it just means that the film's earned their right to do that. It's set it up. Yeah. It's done it correctly. It's set it up. You care about the characters. You care about the court. You care about the reasons why they're doing it. You want them to succeed. So when they do succeed, you are happy for that. So it just all it means is the film's done its job. It's done it correctly.
This is an extra window onto the relationship between Gordon and Batman / Bruce Wayne as well. So it's a little bit of his world.
And they have two very defined missions. They have two very defined missions. Batman needs to get onto the train. Gordon needs to make sure that train, well, we find out, crashes where it needs to crash. We don't know that at the start. We just know Gordon needs to get out on the tumbler and do something.
And and then they fight on the train. See, I know also, till this viewing, I never figured out, I never actually plot that Ra's al Ghul's on a suicide mission. He's intending to die.
Yeah, it's a bit kamikaze towards the end, doesn't it?
It's like, my fates with lies with Gotham, and it's like, I did not know he's actually on a suicide mission. So
I never thought about it.
So the idea of because I know it's like, it's a bit of a double standard, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm not going to save you. Well, you are practically killing him. But his actual goal was, no, I am setting myself to die for this cause.
You are distracting him long enough that they don't catch wind of what he's doing.
Yeah.
And also to make sure it goes in at the right power and all that sort of thing. Whether he would have found some way to get off that train if he wasn't distracted, I don't know. I don't think so, though, because I think you're right. I think it's a suicide run.
Yeah, and I think... so when he says that, but I'm not going to save you, it's more of like, no, you've made your choice. You are committed to this, that, and he knows it. He almost kind of like.
But you will die knowing
I beat you.
You didn't. Basically, you'll know I won. You'll know that you failed as well.
Yeah.
And also, the moment you find that out, it's too late to stop any of it.
Yeah. And I like how he just accepts it. He just kind of goes, oh, well.
Just closes his eyes a bit, goes a bit zen.
Yeah. And then, destroys a lot of Gotham, but yeah.
Rachel has kept Joffrey safe.
Yes. You haven't mentioned Joffrey,
little boy in it.
It is Joffrey.
Gotham has
and tasered Scarecrow.
In the face.
Yeah. I've always wondered how Scarecrow was still operating, but I would presume he would have an antidote to his own drug.
Yeah,
that mask helps a lot,
Unless he is,
but he was gassed right in the face.
Unless he is just that crazy.
Well, he's significantly crazier in later appearances, but you've got that. The house is burnt down. Batman is now sort of recognised by the town. Jim Gordon is promoted to lieutenant. What else?
Well, we have the...
there's a lot of crazies missing from Arkham because they had to blow their way out of it.
But we have the scene back at Wayne Enterprises where Lucius Fox gets a new job, and there's a nice payoff where Bruce is like reading the paper, and he's like, well, the company went public, and I bought most of the shares. So
Yeah, it's all very complicated.
yeah, and kind of nice sort of touch of condescending. There's also that he's talking about, and I said about how he doesn't care. He'd rather tear Wayne Manor brick by brick if he has to. But now he's actually talking about rebuilding it brick by brick as it was, as in he's rebuilding his father's legacy.
He'll rebuild it as another centuries old.
Yeah.
Yes. Centuries old castle, English pile.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like Taylor Wimpey or Persimmons when it's done.
But yeah, but it's like going back to what it was actually already said. He's like, I don't care if you talk about brick by brick, and he's talking about rebuilding it brick by brick. And
isn't it amazing how the ruins of Wayne Manor look in no way like the English countryside?
Yeah. not a city to be sad in.
Well, no, we know it's out in the sticks, but that is clearly England. Only England looks like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even like upstate New York looks like that.
No,
I've got a fun fact
only
about that coming soon.
All right. So that's it. Batman Begins. Oh,
Yeah.
no, it isn't. There's one key scene that made the hairs stand up on the back of my neck when I first saw it.
Oh, what, the escalation bit with...
Well, yes, he goes to see Gordon. Gordon is... they're finishing off the bat symbol. So, call me if you need me, the bat signal.
We didn't have a corrupt businessman to attach to the bat sign.
And then we have... they had to put a proper bit on there. They did. Strangely enough, I only did volunteer to just live on it.
No.
Or he gets
and you'll be sentenced to be...
We need to call Batman. Do you mind coming out and doing that fucking cross arm thing?
Gordon's lieutenant now.
So then you've got Gordon says, I'm worried about escalation. We buy, Kevlar, they'll buy, we buy semi-automatics, they'll get automatics. We get Kevlar, they'll get armor-piercing rounds. They know you're here now. Now, look at this, for example, this crazy. What was it? Two armed robberies and a double homicide.
Yeah, taste of theatrics,
Left
like
a calling
yourself.
card.
Left a calling card, flips it over, and it's the Joker, and my heart went up about 30 or 40 beats instantly.
Were you thinking
Crazy.
sequel when you're...
Sequel,
Yes.
sequel. Everybody was.
Yeah.
Everybody was. Especially with the hype surrounding it as well. Everybody knew it was, it'd be Ledger and...
I guess after watching this, when it's like, oh, okay, I've just seen the literal adaptation of Batman done right, and then now you're telling me Joker's next, you're like, yeah, I think, Bat fans would just be like jerking themselves off.
Yeah, Batman.
Yeah. Didn't get to go to that cinema anymore.
No.
But yeah, we did miss a bit about Rachel sort of saying like, oh, I love you, but, I can't
This
come
is
back.
now your mask, which I've always kind of fucking hated about the whole Batman mythos. Batman's the real him. Well, yeah, kind of, but he doesn't walk around in his life going, Rachel.
But I think it does fit in the grand scheme of things, how like he is constantly obsessed with being Batman. You look at the films as a whole, so
You
it
get
does
it in
work.
the books. I mean, he's just looking out the he'll be looking out the window waiting for sundown so he can go out and do what he does.
Yeah. So it speaks to that as well, which makes you think like Rachel's never really for him. Really, it's like it's just more of like an ideal kind of that he's chasing. But anyway, but yeah, we do get the and then that's it. That's the film, isn't it? We get the final shot, and he says like sort of, "I never said thank you." It's like you'll never have to.
And you'll never have to. And then he just flies at the camera.
Yeah. Not Wally Fist.
Rather than runs
And the
towards
last
it.
scene of the film is, "I'll sue you, you bastard!"
Yeah,
In that voice.
knocks down Wally Fister, and really.
Poor Wally. Oh dear.
Very quickly, then, my final thoughts. I think I said most of it during the film, so I'm not going to add an awful lot now. I think if I were to rank my favourite superhero films of all time, this still lives in the top 3, maybe top 4. Yeah, certainly. And I've revealed 2 of that top 4 already. In that Superman the movie would still be in that top 4 as well. Let's not fuss about the order at this point. But as we speak, in the summer of 2017, with a lot of things to come, like Infinity War and Justice League and all the rest of it, Lots of things that might challenge these things. I think if I look at the best superhero films ever made, and I think forget whether they're primarily superhero films, because you can make a different argument about The Winter Soldier, you can make a different argument about The Dark Knight, you can make a different argument about some of the X-Men films. When I rank them, if they're starring a superhero, whatever subgenre
Is he a
you're putting
superhero?
alongside
That's the
it,
age-old question.
yeah. Sorry?
Is he a superhero though? He's an average
Batman.
man with lots of money, and
Of course he's a superhero.
I know, I'm only joking. Don't worry.
Yeah, so this is in the top 3 or 4 superhero films ever made. Holds up after 12 years. All those worries I had about it's not going to feel very comic book now, and will that be terribly dated? It's forgotten within 10 minutes of watching it. This film could have been made a couple of years ago, apart from any sites of things like mobile phones we might get. I don't know. But it's a timeless, terrific film, and Matt Reeves has got his work cut out to make anything that comes anywhere near it.
I absolutely
I can't really fault any of that. I think I wholeheartely agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I think it was my favourite Batman film going in. I'm going to question that when it comes to Dark Knight, because that is the one that most people would say is hands down the best, and I've always been a bit contrarian sod, like I usually am, and say no. Well, actually, I think Batman Begins is best. Actually, it's more, but it is more of a Batman film. So if I was to make that argument, that would be.
I can't disagree with that. I really can't. The last point I'll make is it's not a shock to say that one of my others in the top 4 will be The Dark Knight, and that's what I was alluding to with forget how good a superhero film it is. It's how good a film it is in the superhero genre, if you like. This is a better Batman film. There is absolutely no question in my mind about that.
And I think I don't think a film has done its homework on its origin as well as it has with this film. I don't think. I think it's to actually sort of look at a character of a comic book character and to explain how he thinks, the themes within that. I think it really hits out of the park, really.
And the other thing is, as much as I might love The Dark Knight, I think at this stage, Nolan is still almost fighting for the right to make these kind of things. Warner Brothers would have had a very strong hand in this. And The Dark Knight, I'm not so sure about. Certainly by Rises, Nolan's doing whatever he wants. And I don't think that's necessarily to the as talented as he is, and I'd much rather have him in the business of making films than not. I think we start to see the Nolan ego take over in the next 2. This is a tight film, even at 2 hours 20 minutes, made by a focused, disciplined guy who is smart enough to put themes in it, but isn't totally indulging his every whim.
Definitely, this is probably. Would you say this is like the least Nolan-esque film he's done?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, the argument could be made for Insomnia, maybe, but yeah.
Yes, it could. It could.
But this is more sort of working within the confines of a comic book film, but whereas the other films are a bit more Nolan-esque, very, very.
This is a bit more director for hire, but at the same time, he has put his stamp on it in that it's real. It's comparatively quote unquote real world because of Nolan's influence. This is a Christopher Nolan film. I'm not suggesting any other, but some of the things I'm less sure about the guy are much more indulged in the next couple.
Okay. And we'll find out what they are. Becca?
I think you guys have pretty much said it all. There's not really a lot I can add to it. Certainly in terms of the Nolan trilogy, I think this one is my favourite. Again, next week may change that. I do like the look of the first 2 earlier Batman movies, very much in the look and style of them, just in terms of the visual style, really. But this one here, again, I think there's a lot of pros, a lot of cons, but I think this is definitely one of the strongest Batman movies, probably one of the strongest superhero movies. I certainly think probably without this we would not have had the Marvel onslaught that we have now, for sure. But no, definitely high hopes for next week. Really looking forward to to discussing this trilogy as a whole.
Terrific, but I do feel underinformed, Chris.
Yeah, I could also. I need some sort of bat-shaped facts to.
Bat-shaped facts.
Yeah, it's bat-shaped facts.
That's the good thing about those is right. if you got a bat-shaped fact, they could fit through that door after Robin last week. So he shut the door, but the bat-shaped fact can still get in.
They can still fly in through the gap.
Have you got any of those, Becca?
I have 5.
5 bat-shaped
I don't know why
facts.
I seem to go for 5. I don't know why. I just picked a random number. I thought, right, what ones can I do at speed? Okay, so number 1, Wayne Manor is actually a mix of 2 stately English piles that look in no way like Southern California.
They don't. They really don't.
Amazingly enough, when we come to Austin Powers, we're going to have to flag that line up. It's a mix of Woolerton Hall in Nottingham and Mentmore Towers in Buckinghamshire. Fun fact number 2, me going
I'm Batman.
was a joke. Christian Bale obviously lost his voice several times due to his changing the bottom of his
Ludicrous
voice
artistic decision.
during filming. Bat fact number 3, obviously the first appearance or visual appearance of Scarecrow in this Bat series. Fun fact number 4, I understand Rachel Dawes is especially created for this film and isn't a DC character. And fun fact, Bat fact, get your teeth in. Number 5, this is the only Batman film in the Nolan trilogy where
Hang on a minute.
Batman
What about the
actually
other
uses
two?
bats.
I thought you were stopping there. I thought this is the only Batman film in the Nolan trilogy. That's not a trilogy then, is it? Sorry, Becca, try that again.
No, I'm like, on tenterhooks. No, this is the only film in the Nolan Batman trilogy where Batman actually uses bats. In this case, to overrun the SWAT team.
I have another few bat facts.
Well then.
Henry Cavill was auditioned for the role, as well as he was also close to get the role of Bond.
Yeah, so by that time he was like the unluckiest man in Hollywood, dubbed by Total Film or Empire, obviously, because he'd missed out on Batman, and obviously ended up playing Superman.
So there is that bat fact. Originally, Christopher Nolan wanted to cast Gary Oldman as the villain, probably Ra's. And he was going to cast Chris Cooper as Gordon, but Cooper wanted to spend more time with his family, according to IMDb. So he Nolan hit on the unusual idea of casting Gary Oldman as someone who's not a baddie. But yeah, I got it worked out because he's great at Gordon, and I think Liam Neeson makes a better job of being Ra's. I think that would have been. I don't think Gary Oldman would have done it, but I could.
Yeah, though having said that, I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to see. I mean, he could do it because he's talented enough. I wouldn't have wanted to see Gary Oldman in any of the other roles in this film.
Yeah.
And I think he was a great choice for Jim Gordon. Having said that, you've just said Chris Cooper, and I can see it in my head. I can see Chris Cooper playing that role
with a moustache.
Yeah. You kind of make him up much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see him playing basically the year one Jim Gordon. Yeah.
And what was another back fact that I had in my head, but I completely lost? Actually, I don't know whether it's actually true, but according to IMDb, this was like caused inspiration for the Broccoli's to reboot the franchise for Casino Royale. Now I don't know how
That was
true
going to
that
be my
is.
number 1 bat fact, but then obviously I mentioned that at the top of the show, so I scratched it out and decided about the Wayne Manor.
It would have inspired them quite quickly because they announced Daniel Craig in October of the same year.
Yeah, when it came out in the summer.
I find it difficult to believe. I think they already had Casino Royale in mind. Bear in mind, they fired Pierce Brosnan in 2004. So unless they were going off early buzz around this film and going, look what they're doing with Batman, we should do the same, that's possible. But I doubt they came out of the cinema going, that's really good. Something similar with Bond. I think it would have been on the wrong time.
Yeah, it would have been a fast turnaround. That's what I thought. Unless it was maybe like something during production, they thought, well, actually, that's a good idea. You know, they saw like a few screen tests and thought, actually, no, this is looking really good. I think we should do this. But yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's it. That's the show, folks. Nearly 3 hours. So
that's going to be a long one. Even with editing, that's going to be a long one because I've got lots to take out of that, to be honest with you.
So get comfortably, listeners.
Get settled in.
I'm just telling
some
people at the end
snacks
of the
and
show, get yourself comfortable because we've just finished.
Well, no, if this is if the next 2 shows are going to be judged by this.
I think
Get
the
the
Dark
snacks and
Knight's the
focus.
one I'm concerned about. Not in a bad way. I think it'll be quite good, but I don't think Rises is going to give me the same problems. I think for a longer film, it's thinner. The Dark Knight is,
I don't know. I'm concerned with both of them. I think there's a lot to talk about in the next 2. But
yeah, this was meant to be the easy one.
Yes. But
I mean, in fact, we've started with Batman Begins and we've gone on so long Batman Retires.
yeah, we've gone on talking about the film longer than the actual film, so good work.
We've done that before. We did
Yeah.
an hour longer on Superman 4. But I tell you what, let's cut people a break and get out of here. Quickly, social media, Chris.
Cinematronics on Twitter, and you can also find my website at cinematronics.co.uk.
I'm at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter.
And you can follow us on Twitter at Expect Us to Talk, on facebook.com/Expect Us to Talk, and you can also do the same on iTunes and the YouTube.
Excellent. I'm expecting next week to be really, really funny because there's a character called the Joker in it, which means, Becca,
Do you expect to talk or return with The Dark Knight?